application. They were expelled from the party last month. The 10 MPs also wanted their benefits to be restored pending the finalization of the review process. Parliament had undertaken to abide by the court's decision, but legal advice pointed out that only an interdict can stop the swearing-in process. 8 new MK Party MPs were sworn in a fortnight ago. The number of Mpox cases has now risen to 25. The National Health Department says that the latest case is a 38-year-old man who was admitted at a private hospital in the Western Cape. This after he experienced a typical Mpox lesions on the face last week. The patient is now at home isolating and is in a stable condition. The outbreak response team has been activated and contact tracing and monitoring activities are ongoing. National Health spokesperson Foster Mohali.
According to the investigation report, the patient has no recent international travel history, nor contact with suspected or confirmed Mpox patient. This increases the total number of positive cases recorded in the country since the outbreak of Mpox in May this year to 25 cases, including 3 deaths. We urge all identified and suspected contacts to cooperate with health officials during contact tracing for screening and possible diagnosis.
And a busy bridge has collapsed in northern Vietnam after heavy rainfall caused by Typhoon Yagi. It made landfall on the northeastern coast of Vietnam on Saturday. More from the BBC's Rupert Wingfield Hayes.
Typhoon Yagi is the biggest storm to have come out of the Western Pacific so far this year. When it slammed into the coast of northern Vietnam, it was packing winds gusting to 200 kilometers an hour, ripping off roofs and knocking down trees. But it's the rain that has done the most damage. Huge amounts of rainfall over the mountains of northern Lao Sai province have swollen the Red River, bringing down bridges and unleashing landslides. One alone is reported to have buried 17 people. 10 cars are reported to have plunged into the Red River when a busy road bridge was swept away. There are many people still missing.
The top story at 3 o'clock, the state prosecutor in the criminal case against Pastor Mboro Paseka Muswening has requested the recusal of the presiding magistrate. For SAFM News,
in sports this hour, Kolisi returns to the Sharks. Ngidi returns for Proteas white ball series against Afghanistan and Ireland, and SAFA suspends players for Lindalani Ladies and Royal AM Brawl. More details at 3:30.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
EFC is live this Thursday. The bantamweight title is on the line, live from the World Sports Betting Arena, as the top-ranked divisional contenders and perennial fan favorites Faiz Jacobs and Vince Bembe go to war.
Oh, big right for Faiz Jacobs. The finish is over. What a win.
When he smells blood, he hunts mercilessly for the finish.
EFC is live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
All right, what for you moves the National Pulse today? You think about it. I have my own views about it. We're certainly going to get talking for the next 3 hours. I trust you had a wonderful weekend, but weekend, wonderful or not so wonderful, the issues remain that impacts on what we think about South Africa, what we think about the issues that affect service delivery, and we need to amplify all those issues, the good and the bad. So when we revel in the Springboks victory, we say wow, but when there are issues of shortcomings, we must also be critical of that. And one of the issues has got to be the issues regarding the service or lack of service at the Helen Joseph Hospital. We'll talk about that in just a moment. My name is Ashraf Garda. As always, great to connect with you. You can connect not just by listening, which is fabulous, but you can engage on air, and this is how you do it. 086 000 2032. To register whatever it is you want to get off your chest, you can do that right away. Voice notes are welcome. Try and keep it to 30 seconds. It really helps us get as many out as possible. 0614 104 107. You can also text us on that same WhatsApp number. And by the way, if you want to join the National Pulse WhatsApp channel, just WhatsApp, so say join channel. And lastly, you can connect on social media. You can tweet us on the X platform. Use the hashtag The National Pulse and give us your views on what for you moves the National Pulse, but also post on Facebook. And certainly for those that are regular listeners, of course many of them are, but many of you who are regulars also want to post regularly, say, hey, I'm here. So give yourself a shout out. I certainly will do that as well. Okay, I did mention to you what moves the National Pulse, and I'm going to get to it right away. Has got to be the issue around the issue of service delivery or the lack thereof, question mark, regarding a hospital named after who else but Helen Joseph, right? So let's talk about that. With me is the South African Medical Association's chairperson, Dr. Imbuyizi Mzukwa. Appreciate your time. You are now connected to the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and your listeners, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Now, the reason we are talking to you, and of course you know this, but let me just enlighten the audience, right? Tom London is a broadcaster, content creator, landed in hospital at the Helen Joseph Hospital, spent some time there, and decided in the midst of his illness and illnesses that what he saw was so concerning that he needed to amplify it on by creating video content, which clearly then went viral because that got shared amongst his friends on social media, on WhatsApp, whatever it is. So this, in terms of what he said, highlighted what he felt was numerous issues of concern as a patient at Helen Joseph Hospital in Johannesburg. This is what he said.
They treat the patients like cockroaches. No doctor, I haven't seen one doctor walk up to a patient in our ward and go, good morning, Mr. So-and-so, how are you? Nothing. They treat the patients with absolute disdain and disrespect. I'm talking about this from the young Wits medical students all the way up the chain at this hospital. I have never seen a level of disrespect for human beings like this in my life. Yesterday I was taken down for a CT scan to check if I've got cancer. I had the CT scan, I was brought back up. A few hours later they came back, said, oh, we made a mistake, we forgot to put the dye in you. So I went down and had another CT scan. Now, I've been dealing with my doctors, Dr. Pillay and Dr. Van Eck. Every day they come and report back to me, they tell me what they're doing. Yesterday, a blonde doctor, some young blonde white doctor, she comes to my bed, looks at me, ignores me, starts writing in my file for 10 minutes, says absolutely nothing, and then announces that Dr. Pillay is no longer my doctor, I've got a new doctor. I asked why, and she said that he has handed his patients over to less complicated patients over to someone else. And she gave me the doctor's name, I can't remember. I haven't seen that doctor for 48 hours, so now I haven't had a doctor for 48 hours. Dr. Pillay, I don't know, Brew, you came and spoke to me every day. Just 2 days ago you said we're going to look awkwardly at each other for the next few days until we have your CT scans, and now you've ducked. Someone told me that you're writing exams at the moment. I don't know, right? The guy opposite me, that doctor that comes every day, treats him with absolute disrespect. He's a human being who, when he talks to this guy who is in constant pain opposite me, he talks to him like this. The guy opposite me goes, I'm in so much pain, doc. And the doctor goes, oh yes? Just like that. Nothing. No doctor here calls you by name. Every doctor here assumes you're a hobo that's come off the streets. The doctors here are behaving like the patients are their little experiments.
The patients are their little experiments. So much comment and commentary in that video clip. So Dr. Mzuka with us, of course, from the South African Medical Association. So here's the first thing, right? We accept the fact, I think all of us can say we have good experiences, we have bad experiences in all sectors of society, right? How common, how normal is that testimony from Tom London?
Well, if I may come in there, Ashraf, I first of all, I think I would like to express our sympathy to Tom and the rest of the patients that are receiving such kind of treatment in the healthcare system. You will know that it is not a norm for a doctor or any healthcare worker, by the way, to be treating a patient in that fashion that is described by Tom. And there's no justification whatsoever of healthcare workers not having that sympathy towards patients. However, we need not forget the underlying mental issues that state healthcare workers are going through. For example, the fact that people like Tim DeMeyer wrote a letter, open letter, expressing the frustrations that state healthcare workers are facing in dealing with patients and dealing with numbers when there's a dire shortage of these doctors or healthcare workers, but also the conditions under which they work, where you find that when they go out to management to express their frustrations, they are not listened to. At times, they are threatened by a disciplinary action and all these things. So, and not only Tim DeMeyer, but also there are credible reports that were written by the then health ombuds, who expressly stated, the conditions that they found in the Eastern Cape and in Gauteng. In Gauteng, in fact, he said, this is the best province that is run by a Mickey Mouse. And with the Eastern Cape, he said the Eastern Cape was an embarrassment. So you can imagine, if doctors and other people are working in such conditions, and when they express their frustrations, nobody listens. And instead, they are pushed to work and stuff like that. So you can imagine the burnout and all the mental illness, that mental well-being around those issues. But I need to stress again, this is not to justify what has happened there at Helen Joseph, but I'm just echoing the underlying conditions in there.
Now, I'm glad that you've done it, because it certainly gives us a broader perspective, okay? Having said that, right, let's just understand this properly. Where does the buck stop with regard to this? I mean, is it, well, maybe you tell me, in terms of that experience from Tom London, where does the buck stop? Who's in charge?
If you look at this, Ashraf, this is a systemic problem. We've always expressed, to the Minister of Health and everybody who cares to listen. We've said to them, if you don't attend to other pillars of a healthcare system and you are running around with this NHI idea, and you neglect things like ethical leadership and governance, you neglect healthcare workers, employment of healthcare workers in the healthcare system, but also the issue of infrastructure that is dilapidating, and all these things that were pointed out, because we understand the NHI to be a financing model. It's not going to be employing doctors or nurses. It's not going to be employing other healthcare workers. It's not going to be looking at the hospitals. It's not going to be providing clinics in the rural areas.
I understand that. So I just want to get in, because I'm just worried about time that we have left, right? What I'm asking, does the buck stop with the, Helen Joseph Hospital? Just help us clearly understand this. Is it the hospital? Is it the South African Medical Association? Is it the Minister of Health? Where does the buck stop when it comes to this type of issue here?
Well, at that level, if you were to attend it to a local level, obviously it will be the CEO of the hospital. But also you need to take it up to the head of department in Gauteng. But it doesn't end there. The health minister as well is accountable of what is happening in the healthcare institutions.
Okay, and we have a new health minister again. Who was the health minister before? I understand that, right? Okay, so with regard to the Tom London testimony, then I've noticed significantly you're not contesting that to say this seems to be just too far fetched. I mean, would you take it that everything that he said actually checks out?
Yes, I would fully agree with what Tom is saying. I mean, that would be the experience of a patient in the state facilities. But what I also want to stress there, he mentions a Dr. Pillay, who is a good doctor there. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is, even though there are issues, at some point, but we do have some good Dr. Pillays out there who are working under those conditions, but are still, expressing sympathy, are still, conducting themselves in a professional way. Yeah, so not that the others don't need to be attended to, but we can't paint all of them with the same brush.
Well, I think that's fair enough. But I mean, and this is where the issue comes in, right? He speaks about, two parts. He speaks about the lack of attention from the health practitioners. That's the first part. And the second part, he talks about the general, lack of hygiene and cleanliness in the hospital. I must tell you, just for the record, I was there, the cardiac clinic at Helen Joseph about 4 or 5 months ago. I considering it's a public hospital, I never saw anything remotely close to what has been explained. But that doesn't mean another department may be different. So I'm just putting it out there, right? Having said that, are you saying that the experience of poor hygiene in the hospitals is the norm and is what one must expect at a public hospital like this?
At the current state, yes, that's what you should be expecting, because it's not only that hospital, it's all the hospitals across the country, with the exception of some provinces, for example, like the Western Cape. But the rest, if you go to KZN, you'd find Prince Mshini and other hospitals are in the same state as described by Tom.
Okay, so I'm glad that you cleared that up, because what he tells us, and that's exactly my point when I chatted to Keys and Temba, my producer, was like, actually, we've heard so many stories like this. The only difference is someone with a high public profile has amplified his position, and now we're listening. The second part is the issue of the stresses of medical doctors. We all know about medical doctors having, double shifts, working 20 hours a day, and, it would be crazy. So the point is, are medical doctors themselves, practitioners, are they not being set up for failure? I'm likening it to being, likening it to be a rugby referee in a big rugby international like the Box and the All Blacks, excepting you take the referee out and you expect somehow the teams will reach a resolution. It's a complete nightmare for disaster, and that's what's being set up for the doctors. That means they are being compromised themselves, and therefore they are compromising the patients through no fault of theirs. That would represent for me a crisis.
It is a crisis, Ashraf, because if you look at the conditions like I explained, during the times of load shedding, our doctors have to use their cell phone light to finish off the operation. But at some point, you've got doctors who are who are not safe in the hospitals. You've got dilapidated buildings. But on top of that, Ashraf, the equipment is broken. There are no medicines. At some points there were even emergency medicines that were not there. So I used to work in the state as well, and there will be no gloves. How do you explain where there is no soap, there are no gloves? Absolutely. The state is just in a crisis.
Okay. Let's leave it at that. Thank you for highlighting the state in a crisis. And that is why, to use a typically South African phrase, that's why so many people are literally gatvol. It's exactly what people feel about so many things. The point is, can we actually tolerate it? Should we tolerate it? Dr. Mbuyisi Mzukwa, appreciate your time. Chairperson of the South African Medical Association. Thank you for connecting to the National Pulse.
Thanks, Asha.
Dikwenas and Lesotho plan to illustrate how quick crocodiles are in their own backyard. But the Atlas Lions believe they have superior quality to dominate the hosts. The South up against the North. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Lesotho versus Morocco on Monday 9 September at 9 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
I'm looking at Robbie's comments from Bloemfontein saying, "Hi Ashraf, it's the same in all state departments. I was in the deeds office this morning. Same attitude." You know, we can gloss over it, but how do you gloss over it? That is a reality for thousands of people around the country. Well, what about the reality of the Algerian elections? Remember, we spoke about this ahead of the election that took place on the weekend, on Saturday, in fact. Well, on Sunday, Algeria's National Independent Election Authority announced that the President Abdelmajid Tebboune is the winner of the country's election that took place on Saturday. Now, there are big issues around turnout figures, local tallies, some degrees of irregularity. In fact, even the president talked about irregularities. Interesting thought. Let's get Ibrahim Dean once again, who's an independent researcher. Ibrahim, you're connected to the National Pulse. Hello.
Hi, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. Right, so what has happened? I mean, give me some key takeouts about that election. First of all, the numbers.
So, I mean, the numbers just seem, we were talking last week about participation. The Elections Commission said that the participation rate was 48%, even though the amount of votes they said was 2.5 million less than the votes in 2019, and that was a 39% turnout. So, that itself, just the numbers itself tells you that there's big efforts at trying to fudge the numbers, or at least fudge the perceptions, and that they're doing it in a very bad way. And so, everyone knows that it just doesn't add up. And so, aside from the fact that, we all knew that Abdelmajid Tebboune was going to win. We didn't know he was going to get 94.7%. But, the numbers don't seem right. The turnout doesn't seem right. And in an attempt to actually try and, allow for a veneer of credibility, even Tebboune himself has called for an investigation because, the numbers, for example, at 5 o'clock on Saturday was 25% turnout. And the polls closed 4 hours later. It could never have jumped double in that 4 hours.
Okay.
It's a preliminary report. It's not a surprise, but it does show, even if the numbers the way they say it is, 6 million out of a population of 24 million eligible to vote.
Yeah, it's
That's
quite
25%. That tells you that most people in Algeria are disillusioned with the political process. That most feel that it's not going to make any change. Most were aware of the fact that many within the regime and even within the opposition are part of the regime, and so most heeded the calls for boycott. And that's basically what we see from the results.
All right, so now that we have this, we got a 94% winner, which is massive. I'm wondering whether the president complained he didn't get 97 or 98%, because, that doesn't happen in most countries in the world anyway, we know that. What about the opposition? What have the opposition parties said, and perhaps significantly, what then happens next with that country?
So, the opposition party is, la pouvoir is what we term the Algerian elite that control the country. And, they control many of the opposition parties already. So most of the two other candidates, that, were standing against Tebboune basically, said that the numbers were fudged, but are not really contesting the result, because they're all part of the regime, in a sense, or at least part of la pouvoir, the elite that controls the country. So, the real opposition is the people who boycotted the election. Many of them are still in jail, no independent media, so there's no proper credible reporting in Algeria. What does happen next, though, is that, Tebboune has, over the past 5 years since the Iraq protests, actually institutionalized his control and, the Le Pouvoir's control in the country, or basically reified that control. And so it's very unlikely that there's going to be any big protests it does, Algeria has grown by 4% between, 2022 and 2023. So there is oil rents, which he will use to, basically increase and enhance the patronage networks. We're talking, pension increases, unemployment benefits, all from the, the new gas wealth. And it's so unlikely that there's going to be any real calls for a rerun or a recall because, the Algeria is seen as a stable country in the region, which, many countries don't want to see destabilized. Also, there's a conflict in Russia-Ukraine. Algeria is one of Europe's key LNG gas suppliers, after the stopping of Russian gas. And so it does seem as if, the election was about turnout, and the turnout showed that at least domestically there's no legitimacy, but that wasn't going to really change.
Just the last thing you mentioned, when there's stability, nobody wants to rock the boat. But is there any appetite to not only challenge the election, which you've touched on already, but to contest it to the point where there's a call for regime change in terms of mass protests to attempt to get the president to step down, as has been happening in other countries in the world? I mean, and the one that's very topical right now is obviously with what's happening in Israel. So is there something like that?
Yeah, Algeria had that moment in 2019. But many in Algeria see what's happened in Libya, in Mali, in Tunisia, and many at least of the ordinary population are just so disillusioned. They'd rather have their jobs, have the country the way it is, and just carry it on. They don't accept the legitimacy of the president, but I mean, they also just want to live.
Okay.
And so it doesn't seem as if there's going to be any real mobilization. Also, the elections were timed at a time where it's 36 and 37 degrees, so it's very hot to mobilize.
Yeah.
And control of the media is controlled by the government. So it's very unlikely that there will be able to be any real calls for mobilization and any mobilization.
Let's leave it at Ibrahim Dean, independent researcher. Appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to the National Pulse. Was it phrase about better the devil you? Well, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But thank you for that, Imbi.
Thanks
right.
for having me.
Yes, comments about hospitals, right?
Yeah, Ashraf, in regard to the state of the hospitals in South Africa, it's a known phenomenon. The state is very disgusting and stinking, the state of our hospitals here. It's actually what you call black government. I don't know what's wrong with us blacks in particular. So the government would cut the budget of health department. The government would go cut the budget of police. These two items, police department and health department, it's terrible. It's terrible, really. Thank you, Willie Nkuma.
Well, I don't know about the black government part of it, because there are examples of good and bad across the world, no matter what your nationality, your ethnicity, your religious background. There's just too many of that. But I think you're right about the shortcomings we experience in South Africa with regards to healthcare should not be tolerated. That's the reality. 3:30 is the news headlines with Madubi.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines this hour, the ANC says that Thembi Simelane's fate as the Justice Minister lies squarely in the hands of President Cyril Ramaphosa. The prosecutor in the criminal case against Pastor Mboro Paseka Mutswening has requested the recusal of the presiding magistrate, and a report says that the EU needs massive investment and a much more coordinated industrial policy if it is to compete with major rivals such as the US and China. Details of these and other stories in your news at 4.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in Parktown has a fatal crash reported at Houghton Drive. The road's been closed. The M1 northbound in Houghton Estate is queuing towards Rivera Road. That's due to a crash on the opposite carriageway. And the M2 westbound in Penrose has a crash reported near Reuven Road. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Pietermaritzburg has heavy traffic reported towards Chatterton Road due to an earlier crash. The N2 southbound is slow moving towards Spaghetti Junction junction, and the R103 southbound is queuing towards Peter Brown Drive in Pietermaritzburg. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound, slow moving through Bishop's Court. The N7 Jakes Granville Drive southbound is queuing at Beaufort Circle. Strand Road eastbound in Stickland, slow moving towards the R300 highway. Racecourse Road in Lansdowne is slow moving near Chaka Road, and Hilberson Drive in Richwood has a crash reported between Potsdam Road and Tygerberg Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Kapele.
Okay, so Siya Kolisi, unfit, overweight, not putting enough effort. That's for his team. What's his position now?
Well, the Hollywood Bets Sharks have confirmed the return of Siya Kolisi to the franchise. Kolisi left to play for Racing 92 in France a year ago, but chose to return home after just one season. His relationship with Racing 92 reportedly broke down after President Jackie Lorenzetti described the flank as having gained weight, lost shape, and transparent towards the end of the season. There was initially a massive transfer fee demand from Racing 92, but it was confirmed over the weekend that the two parties had mutually decided to part ways. Then in cricket, Lungi Ngidi is back in the Proteas setup after being named in the squad for the white ball tour to the UAE, where they will play Afghanistan and Ireland. Ngidi missed the recent three-match T20 series in the West Indies due to a calf injury, but will bolster a relatively inexperienced squad. The Proteas management have decided to rest a host of their first-choice players for the tour, including Kagiso Rabada, Keshav Maharaj, Heinrich Nortje, Marco Janssen, Tobias Shamsi, Gerald Coetzee, David Miller, and Heinrich Klaassen. Now, the Proteas will face Afghanistan in 3 ODIs from the 8th to the 18th to the 22nd of September before heading to Abu Dhabi for 2 T20s on the 27th and 29th of September and 3 ODIs from the 2nd to the 7th of October against Ireland. Moving on to football, the South African Football Association Disciplinary Committee has found Lindalani ladies and some of their players guilty. This is after the much publicized brawl when they faced Royal AM during a Hollywood Bets Super League clash. The incident took place on the 21st of April this year at the Princess Makoko Stadium, and the SAFA DC has suspended 3 players, including Akona Mkhize, Nomfundo Xulu, and Anele Mia for the 2 games coming up with immediate effect starting this past weekend against the Thunderbird ladies. And they've also fined Lindalani ladies 10,000 rands. In the meantime, Skukune United coach Lekhono Lesiyema says that they are resigned to losing striker Chibuike Ohizo and are considering signing another forward. The Nigerian goal ace has been linked with a possible move to Algeria before the start of the Betway Premiership this week. And although Babina Nogo have been active in the transfer market already, Siyama insists that they are not ruling out adding more numbers.
We are still having a look at some players also, I can tell you that. And obviously with the mentioning of the Oizo, definitely the striking department will be looking at. And we had a little bit some injuries. I was unfortunate that when I arrived, there were some injuries. So there are guys that I haven't really seen. But so far so good. The friendly games that we have played is looking, it's promising, and the team, the direction is taking. It might work, because if you check a lot of youngsters with the senior players that are there, it shows that the club wants to keep the squad for longer. Then that shows already that we want to challenge even better than what we have been doing all the previous season.
Ending things off with tennis, newly crowned US Open champion Jannik Sinner admitted yesterday that the controversy over his 2 failed drug tests was still on his mind. The 23-year-old defeated Taylor Fritz in straight sets to win his 2nd Grand Slam title, to add it to his first in Australia in January. However, his path to victory was accompanied by questions over the affair, which saw him twice test positive for a banned substance, and he escaped a lengthy ban when the International Tennis Integrity Agency found that he was not guilty of wrongdoing after he had tested positive for doping. On that note, it is a wrap from my side.
Just quick thought, we play South Sudan tomorrow.
South Sudan, Bafana, yeah.
Goodness, man, we almost got a hiding against Uganda.
We literally almost lost that match. And for me, I feel like Uganda came to South Africa for a single point. So from our side, because we heard Coach Hugo Bruce was saying we need to get all those points from this game and the game that is coming tomorrow. Now, they settled for a draw. I don't know how we're going to play tomorrow.
They drew, but it's 2 points lost even in the draw.
Yeah.
Which that goal came in the 94th minute of the game.
Sure.
Oh my.
That was
goodness.
close.
Right, more sports in an hour.
Welcome to the team, Andile.
Thank you.
What will be your first order of business?
Well, ensuring our greatest assets are taken care of.
Our vehicle fleet?
No, our employees. You see, I want them to feel confident in our company's employee benefits, and Old Mutual Corporate is perfect for that. They take care of everything, from retirement benefits to health and group risk solutions, consulting, and more.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
The Bright Stars are on a massive mission to brighten the mood of the South Sudanese citizens with victory. But Bafana Hugo Bros say they have already bought an extra flight ticket to travel back home with 3 points. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. South Sudan tackle South Africa on Tuesday, 10 September at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, we're going to chat about the campaign to get tiger brands to pay as per the listeriosis issue, right? But that comes up shortly. Let's get your thoughts, your calls, because what we certainly do every single day, we identify what are the big issues that moves the national pulse, and we certainly run with it. That's the right word. Okay, we have a caller from, anonymous caller, in fact. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very good indeed. Go for it. What's your point?
Yes, I just want to make it short. I'm a health worker. I have exposure to both private and government. I'm a senior person in both sides. So I listen to Summer President, and my point at is I fully sympathize with the patient. I mean, the one who complained. And I really always tell my junior people that no patient must suffer under our care, no matter what. So no patient, everyone must be treated with dignity and sympathy and empathy. I also take the opportunity to say that when it comes to hygiene, it has been said there's no hygiene in our hospital. Most of them public hospital, and our patient it doesn't depend on us. And the next point is that people must understand, as much as our patients, no matter what, need support, care, empathy, in the same time, health workers need the same. Remember, I can tell you this, I can tell you from my experience, as much as I want to talk to my patient, explain the disease and take time and put my hand on the shoulders, I do not have time because of the numbers are just crazy. The numbers are just crazy. So health workers will become like monsters ourselves. Like monsters, we don't have feelings anymore. So you go under shock, you lose a patient for whatever reason. It can be sometimes the challenges at work. You just need to move to the next patient and go to theater and operate again. Like we have no heart. I believe as much as our patients need all the support, healthcare need counseling, permanent counseling. We go through a lot. People must know that we sympathize, but we need counseling like almost on daily basis. There's so many good health workers out there. Believe me, from the nurses, doctors, and everyone, we do our level best. Well, I really feel bad for what happened to that patient, but they must understand. Sometimes, most of the time, we do not have time to sit down with our patient, explain. We know we need to sympathize, but where do we get that time?
Well, I'm glad that you've called in. I really appreciate it, and I must sympathize with you because that certainly came through with the conversation I had with the chairperson of the South African Medical Association, and I'm very familiar with the workings of many candidate doctors when they do their internships, and I'm very aware that the stresses are enormous. Just the last thing to you, the fact that you have these stresses that prevent you actually doing your job, which means you're going to get used as a potshot by patients who sees you as under-delivering, but you can't do better. How does that make you feel?
feel bad. We feel bad. Sometimes you know what to do, but you can't do it. And believe me, most of the workers, we also get so much abuse and threats by the patient and the family. I always tell this to my subordinate, my people that are under my care. Remember, your health worker, you will never be the right one.
Yeah.
Whether even a patient comes and slaps you on the cheek, just run away. Because if you replicate, you're the wrong one.
Yeah.
So that a lot is people was find the balance between the two things. It's easy to point finger to the health workers, but these people have no life. We don't have life.
Okay.
Some of us are being under threat of divorce because of we dedicate our lives to the patient. We
All
don't
right.
have life.
I'll tell you what, I really appreciate you calling. I know it's anonymous. I appreciate you calling and I appreciate your honesty. You have given us a human insight into the lives of healthcare practitioners that we sometimes tend to forget when we speak on ministerial level. So I really appreciate the call, and I'm sure the audience nationwide would feel the same way. Thank you for that. Let's get another call. Marcella in Matatiele. Hello.
Hey, Ashraf.
Yes, go for it. Your point?
Yes, my brother. No, I will be to the point. I had a dentist friend who was practicing both in private and in a clinic here in Matatiele. This guy, he was my friend. Every time after school I work, I'm a school teacher. Every time after school I call him, he's already out. He goes there at 9 o'clock, 2 hours later he's out. But he will tell you that when I get to the public, I go there, tell my assistant that I'm going to only see 17 people or 20 people, whatever the number he says. And he will tell you that, no, get on the bed. You don't ask a person, how are you, how are your kids. They don't interact in that human level with the public people. But when he practices there in town at a private facility, he will tell you there, you ask a patient, hey mama, how are you? How is the family? How is everything? Because there it's private. So this attitude is not about the conditions that these people don't have equipment, they don't have the conditions. It's about the human kind of treatment that they are giving to the public setting.
Yeah.
They are not human. This thing that we must understand their condition of service.
I agree with you.
Bad.
Okay.
It's not there, my brother.
All right.
These people, in fact, they work shorter hours. Some of them in the public setting, and then in the private, they will work longer hours and being very nice to patients.
All right. I hear you. I think it's a lot more complicated than that. I mean, even at private clinics, they get paid more. I understand that. But yeah, there are just too many people who work longer, not shorter. I can tell you that now. I know that for a fact. In the public spaces, they work longer hours. There's something, I mean, whichever way we want to spin it, there's something rather rotten or unhealthy with the state of South Africa's healthcare. There's something unhealthy. I mean, do you agree with that? I certainly want to know.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
We should be chatting to Richard Spoor coming up shortly, but in the meantime, let's get an update on another important development with regard to South Africa's politics. The ANC's National Working Committee are currently in a meeting with the Gauteng Provincial Executive Committee. That is as per reflection on the performance of the ANC in the May polls. So earlier today, the party's Secretary General Fikile Mbalula addressed the media ahead of the actual meeting. Let's find out what's happened, how much more we know about that with Sibatle Mota, who's the SABC News reporter there. Appreciate your time and thanks for connecting to the National Pulse.
Thank you so much for having me, Ashraf.
Thank you. Right, perhaps I'll leave it to you with an open-ended thought. I mean, some of the key bullet points to emerge, from what happened with Fikile Mbalula this morning and maybe further on developments in terms of what you may know coming out of the meeting.
So basically, the NWC meeting is being held here in Gauteng. As you know, last week it was held in KwaZulu-Natal. And some of the key issues or developments and discussions that are happening is why the province actually saw a decline for the ANC in the 29 May polls. So some of the issues that have come out and that we were briefed on by Secretary General Fikile Mbalula, amongst others, load shedding and the ailing infrastructure. he also made mention of some squabbles within the party that may have caused them to, dip to as far as 40% in the polls. So those are some of the issues that have been discussed, especially in Gauteng. And he also did mention the fact that they'll be receiving the reports from all the 6 regions just to say where they lacked and where they can actually fix. And I think another very important key discussion point that came out is the possibility of the disbandment of the KZN PEC. As you know that KZN, the ANC in KZN rather did dismally when it lost its majority and dipped to 17%.
Absolutely. So therefore, are there things that's come through besides what you've just said that you think shows a particular concern from the ANC and demands attention in terms of what happens next to the party?
Yes, of course. One of the key issues that the ANC has raised, Ashraf, is the emergence of the MK party and how Fikile Mbalula and the ANC in its entirety feels like they had some of their members who were working for the MK party and led to the significant decline. So those are some of the key aspects that they are discussing, and the fact that they just need to go back to their structures to consolidate and ensure that the members who do exist and who are part of the party aren't serving other interests, So those are some of the key things that have developed. And after this NWC meeting, they will be heading to Mpumalanga as well as to assess the situation there. As we know that the MK party yet again did make inroads in the province.
And did it come through, if in words or even in terms of feelings that from the ANC that, hey, we've messed up here, man?
You do get a sense that voters are not resonating with the ANC as much as they should be. And this, again, I always draw back to the 40% results, especially in Gauteng, even with all the measures that the Premier, Panyaza Lesufi, may have tried to implement, but voters are just not resonating with the party. And I think that's where they want to fix this whole situation, where they go back to the structures and consolidate the structures, knowing that when the ANC officials do go out and woo voters for the 2026 local government elections, some of those issues may have been ironed out. But, we've spoken about this numerous times, and it is going to prove to be a very mammoth task.
Absolutely. Well, leave it at that. Let's see how that develops, and perhaps more importantly, outside the NWC of the ANC, what do they do next in the months ahead? Remember that municipal election now, not quite on our doorstep, but it's certainly coming up shortly, sometime soon. Thank you for your time, Sibatle Mota, the SABC News reporter. Great to connect with you on the National Pulse.
The breakers of the barriers have demonstrated that bravery, courage, and excellence often exceed any boundaries and limits. This exhilarating moment is the 19th edition to celebrate and honor the tangible impact of women in sport. Experience the Momentum G-Sport Awards 2024 on Thursday, 12 September at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and reports on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Well, from one health issue to another health issue of sorts, right? Lawyers who represent victims who were affected by the listeriosis outbreak say they have new evidence linking Tiger Brands to the tragedy, and they are now calling on the firm, Tiger Brands that is, to immediately settle with victims in terms of claims. Let's find out more with Richard Spoor from Richard Spoor Inc. Attorneys. Appreciate your time, Richard. You connected to the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf.
Thank you. Where are we at regarding this issue?
Today marks 6 years since the minister officially confirmed that the outbreak of listeriosis associated with polony produced at the Tiger Brands facility in Polokwane was over. It also a little more than 6 years since a class action suit was instituted against Tiger Brands on behalf of the victims. But 6 years in, we're still a long way from settlement. we're still a long way from achieving justice. In the meantime, as we heard at the press conference today, there are hundreds of people living with the consequences of this outbreak. There are children with severe neurological impairments, children who can't go to school, children who are special needs kids who need caring. There are old people who need caring. There are women, men and women, women who are infertile. There are women with severe bodily injuries caused by the infection that they contracted while they were pregnant. There are the dependents of over 216 people who died during this epidemic. And justice is just a part of the system, but the delays and the reluctance on the part of Tiger Brands to take responsibility and address this harm is just completely unacceptable. We were there today with Mark Haywood and the Catholic Bishops' Conference saying to Tiger Brands, take responsibility, be a responsible corporate, settle these claims.
So what is the official Tiger Brands response?
Tiger Brands continue to deny, to delay, and to prevaricate. They say things in private, but in public, their defense stands. They have done nothing to accept responsibility for this matter. This notwithstanding the fact that they are acutely aware that the case against them is unanswerable and that they are, in fact, liable for the terrible harm ensued.
Okay, so if they've taken no responsibility, as you have mentioned, what then happens next, certainly for people like yourself, representing a whole lot of victims regarding the case?
Well, the process grinds on, and doubtless at the end of the day, I'm fairly confident that within the year we will have a liability finding. There was a liability in order from the court confirming that Tiger is liable, but it could still take years before all the victims are compensated. We don't think it's necessary. Frankly, I don't see this matter going to trial. I cannot see that there is any expert anywhere in the world who would be prepared to stand up in court and say that, deny Tiger's responsibility. So, we have presented expert reports and expert evidence to Tiger. They have not responded with experts disputing that. And the reason why is quite straightforward. They don't have an answer. They do have no basis whatsoever to deny responsibility.
What for you, therefore, is the big unanswered question in this entire episode?
The only question is, when do you, I like an analogy of saying that, imagine if the key issue was whether the Earth orbited the Sun, which we know to be a scientific fact. Tiger is asking us to go to court to prove that the Earth orbits the Sun. They are asking us, they are denying that. They are denying genetic evidence that is so overwhelmingly against them that the case approaches certainty. In other words, there's not even a modicum of doubt that Tiger produced and distributed contaminated foodstuffs, and that they are responsible for the outbreak and the appalling human toll that this inflicted.
Okay, now I'm thinking as I talk to you, then I need to tell Nudge Temba and Keys, my producers, to say, hold it, we need to get Tiger Brands to come up front up here. Maybe we'll get more answers. Maybe, just maybe. Richard Spruer, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us here on the National Pulse. All right.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Tell you what, we've had so many people commenting, about a hospital in the name of Helen Joseph, which really, it is such a slur to her name. That's on the one thing. The other is just the issues of general healthcare services in the public health space in our country, right? Let's do this. I'm going to play some of the voice notes that we've got. Let me just get to that. So just comment about Tom London.
Afternoon, Ashraf. This is Bugani from Devon. I'm listening to this interview about the experiences of Tom London in one of the public hospitals. I just hope this public bashing of the healthcare professionals doesn't discourage those that are not doing bad things to patients, because my mother has a different experience where she collects her medication for diabetes at Prince Sheehan. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think your point is well made, and you probably heard me say I went to visit some people at the same hospital about 3-4 months ago, and the experience was very, very different. But you have to compare a whole range, not just one or two cases. So in fact, here's the other thing. It may not even discourage those medical practitioners. It may encourage them to say, we as medical practitioners, we are actually sitting ducks. And I'm saying that only because I'm paraphrasing the words of Dr. Mbuyizi Mzukwa, because he, as the chairperson of the South African Medical Association, agreed with everything Tom London said. And that is a big cause for concern.
Good day, Ashraf and SAFM. About this issue with the doctors, what we're sitting with here is a result of the two-tier system of private healthcare, which has taken all the resources, all the public resources, the money out of our bank accounts to go into big companies that provide health, and our public sector has deteriorated as a result, So all of this comes down to the manner in which the private interests rule the healthcare industry, and we're seeing the byproduct of that in the public sector. So don't tell me that doctors are irresponsible people, okay? I mean, it's not them, it's the privatization of health that we're sitting with. So it's more emphasis needs to be put on the NHS, and we need to get that going with a clear path forward. Thank you.
Well, you see, here's the point. NHS, ABC, DEF, whatever you want to call it, I think it's very clear that private hospital treatment is in a far better condition than public, but it's just unaffordable for the vast majority. Even the middle class that are paying also can't afford it. They're just doing it reluctantly. The flip side is there's just sufficient evidence of a very, very unhealthy healthcare system. And how do you challenge that?
Good day, Ashraf Garda and the SFM listeners. On the issue of Helen Joseph and other hospitals as a whole, the government will always shift the blame on doctors and the nurses on the media, but they are not doing anything about the hospital. They are not fixing anything about our current hospital. So the government needs to act and man up, prime by project. And thank you for the great show.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the feedback about the great show, but it is sad in the sense that even this great show is driven to a large degree by the issues that drives the national pulse. And there's no question as I talk to you, these issues must get your pulse rate racing. It just absolutely has to, sadly so. Let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock.
Very much in that day, Ashraf. The top stories, Ramaphosa to decide on the Justice Minister's fate, and Pastor Mboro's case is postponed. A very good afternoon. The ANC says Thembisi Benani's fate as the Justice Minister lies squarely in the hands of President Cyril Ramaphosa. This follows corruption allegations leveled against Simelane, who received R500,000 from a broker that canvassed for loans from VBS Bank. ANC SG Fikile Mbalula says Simelane will, however, be subjected to the ANC's Integrity Commission.
So in as far as how she is affected by the debacle in relation to her responsibilities as a minister, playing an executive role in terms of the cabinet of the country, That is the prerogative of the president to deal with that. Whether or not this minister is fit, given the report that is got on the table, to continue.
Eastern Cape Community Safety MEC Xolile Nqatha has received a memorandum of demands from marchers in Mthatha today. This as the ANC in the OR Tambo region led a mass march to highlight the high levels of crime in the area and to encourage victims to report such cases. Nqatha says police are ready to deal with criminals.
We are determined to work with you. You saw in the previous weeks that people are put in their places. We are saying to criminals and extortionists, the SAPS is ready. They must bring it on. They have two options to choose if they want to be good citizens that obey the law, or they'll be arrested, or they will go to the grave.
The Palm Ridge Magistrates Court has postponed the criminal case against Pastor Mboro Paseka Motsweneng to the 11th of September. This follows the recusal request of the presiding magistrate by the state. Pastor Mboro's legal team was expected to again apply for bail. The controversial self-proclaimed prophet is facing charges of kidnapping, illegal possession of a firearm, and assault, amongst others. This after a video emerged showing Mboro wielding a panga and being escorted by an armed entourage while entering a primary school last month. The prosecutor, the Groblersdal Magistrates Court in Limpopo, will this afternoon make a decision on the bail application of the 5 accused drug lords. Frederick Bota, Simpure Kumalo, and 3 Mexican nationals were arrested in July for allegedly running what has been described as Africa's largest drug manufacturing lab. The Mexicans, Ruben Vidan, Gonzalez Jorge Partida, and Gutierrez Lopez Alejandro, abandoned bail. The court sitting is underway. The Weather Service says KwaZulu-Natal residents should brace themselves for colder conditions this week. There's an 80% chance of rain expected in the south of the province today. The Weather Service has issued a yellow level 2 warning for snowfall in parts of the Drakensberg in the province's Midlands. Weather forecaster Ntantla Stol.
The southwestern parts, in there I'm counting Giants Castle, parts of Moy River, Berg, Kokstad, and the other smaller towns that are close to the Drakensberg Mountains. Not forgetting Bergville, of course. They're also quite close to the Drakensberg Mountains.
And a report says the EU needs massive investment and a much more coordinated industrial policy if it is to compete with major rivals such as the US and China. The report's author, the former head of the European Central Bank, Mario Draghi, warned that the EU was struggling with high energy prices and faced tougher export conditions as more countries introduce protectionist measures.
For the first time since the Cold War, we must genuinely fear for our self-preservation. And the reason for a unified response had never been so compelling. And I am confident that in our unity we will find the strength to reform.
The top story at 4 o'clock, the ANC says Thembi Simelani's fate as the Justice Minister lies squarely in the hands of President Cyril Ramaphosa. For SAFM News,
in sports this hour, Bruce to ring changes for South Sudan clash and Mali, all set for the Hollywood Bets Pro Series Women's League. More details at 4:30.
EFC is live this Thursday. The bantamweight title is on the line, live from the World Sports Betting Arena, as the top-ranked divisional contenders and perennial fan favorites Faiz Jacobs and Vince Bembe go to war.
Oh, big rock for Faiz Jacobs! The finish is over! What a win! When he smells blood, he hunts mercilessly for the finish.
EFC is live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in Parktown has a fatal crash reported at Houghton Drive. The road's been closed off. The M1 northbound in Houghton Estate is queuing towards Rivera Road. That's due to a crash in the opposite carriageway. And the N1 southbound in Centurion has a crash reported near Old Johannesburg Road. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Pietermaritzburg is slow moving towards Chatterton Road due to an earlier crash. The N2 southbound is slow moving towards Spaghetti Junction, and the N3 eastbound in Howick is queuing at Maryvale. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound slow moving towards Hospital Bend. The N7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound is queuing at Voortrekker Road. The M3 southbound is queuing towards Rhodes Drive, and Batencroft Street outbound slow moving towards the elevated freeway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So we're going to chat in a few minutes' time to Jeff Wicks regarding another huge cause for concern, and that is a whistleblower who, again, has been compromised. We'll get to that in just a second or two. Let me just say this much, right? You've heard the story of Tom London and the Helen Joseph Hospital. So some facts. It appears that by and large that story checks out. You can debate some parts of it. It may not be every single department at Helen Joseph, but in the department that he was in, it appears to be the case. That certainly then is confirmed by the chairperson of the South African Medical Association, who doesn't see fit to challenge Tom London at all. In fact, he's saying that there are mitigating factors where the medical staff themselves are under so much stress. I mean, in simple words, they themselves are on a hiding to nothing, operating in very unhealthy circumstances. Now, the point to remember is the Tom London testimony is interesting in the sense that he has the benefit of having a public profile. He has the benefit of having his social media being very adept at creating videos, even if he's ill, and having that video being shared across the nation. Certainly, I got it on many WhatsApp groups. I certainly know Tom London. The point is, if it is not Tom London, who else would share that testimony? So because it's him, the testimony is shared, which doesn't make him wrong. It simply means it is open to going viral. The bigger story out of all of this is that's not isolated. There are so many people daily at public hospitals around the country that can share a similar testimony, if not worse. And it is the norm in South Africa. And the question is it acceptable? It cannot be acceptable in the same way that an underperforming Bafana, for example, would not be acceptable, and a Springbok team that's underperforming would not be acceptable. At this point in time, I bring up the Springboks because if we can attain world-class standards in one sector of South African society, what stops us attaining world-class status in other sectors of society? Right now, sadly, South Africa's healthcare is in a very, let me rephrase. Right now, South Africa's public healthcare is in a very unhealthy state. The big question is, what am I and what are you going to do about it? Well, that's my point.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Well, certainly we've had lots of people commenting about that big issue regarding the state of South Africa's healthcare, as we've just heard, but you can share your own thoughts. I also want to share, besides your opinion about what happened, I'm particularly interested in you. If you've used public healthcare services, or you know somebody who's used it in the last year, I want to hear your testimony. Tell me your story. It could be good. It could actually be not so good. I think we need to know exactly what your experience has been. It could be yourself or your family member. Either way, we need to know that. Now, while we're at it, there's the other really, really sad news of a whistleblower who's been knocked off, right? Let's find out more about that with Jeff Wicks. We spoke to him the other day, remember, from News 24. And Jeff Wicks has the tragic story of Armand Swart, right? Let's get Jeff Wicks on the line. Jeff, you are connected to the National Pulse. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's rather tragic that we speak to you at a time, and I say this, choosing my words carefully, when we reflect on the fact that you're on the National Pulse at a time when Armand Swart's pulse rate has stopped working because he's gone.
Absolutely, and it's an extremely disquieting story, and it's yet another example of a case where whistleblowing has led to deadly consequences. Now, just for clarity, Armand Swart himself was not the whistleblower. He was actually killed in the case of mistaken identity. It appears that a trio of hitmen who are now before court had attempted to assassinate someone else at the company where he worked and just mistook him for that person. But what we've revealed today in our reportage is that 2 weeks before that murder took place, the company made a whistleblower report detailing extreme price gouging on a rail component that they produce, and it turns out that it was being sold on to Transnet through a middleman at a 4,650% markup.
So tell us more about the actual... So first of all, I mean, okay, mistaken identity, so really tragic story of a person's loss of life, even though he was not the whistleblower. But the fact is, a whistleblower's life is still being threatened. I mean, clearly, which means...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just a case study of the deadly plight that they face. You know, we've seen it time and time again, but Babita Deokaran's case is an easy one to reach for, where people stand against misspending, malfeasance and corruption, and they face dire consequences. In this case, you know, this company was an upright social citizen, came across overpricing and reported it, and within 2 weeks there was an assassination at their gate meant for one of the company's managers.
Yeah, I mean, so what does this say? I mean, let's look at twofold. We'll get to the actual story in a moment. What does this say again about the plight of or the trauma that the whistleblower and his or her family has to go through when they do the honorable thing and in fact turn up standing for justice as a whistleblower?
Oh, well, I think every time a whistleblower is killed in South Africa, it has a chilling effect. And people need to understand, and I think to a large extent they do understand, that doing the right thing comes with consequences. And, you know, death is one consequence. But whistleblowers have a torrid time in our context, because they either pilloried or they're made into pariahs, they're suspended, their livelihood is threatened, and now their lives are threatened. And the key takeaway for me here, Ashraf, is that, you know, many people view corruption and things like price gouging and inflation and cover quoting, things like that, as a victimless crime because the state has bottomless coffers. But we know that tender and contract corruption is completely intertwined with the criminal underworld, and when extraction sites are compromised through whistleblowing, this is the retaliation that we see.
Yeah. Okay. As far as the story actually goes, just share with us very briefly what actually happened in terms of the whistleblowing aspect. Not so much the whistleblower. What are they whistleblowing about?
So the company manufactures rail components used in Transnet's expansive network across the country, and they're an original equipment manufacturer, so people need to come to them to sell on to Transnet, and they figured out that a small spring, a completely innocuous piece of kit, which they sell for R3.20, was being sold on to Transnet for 152 Rand each. Now, the net effect of that is it takes what should be a 25,000 Rand contract expense and turns it into a 1.2 million Rand contract expense. And that's what they reported. And they now bear the consequences of that.
Is there anything you'd like to add to that story in terms of what's going to happen next?
No, I think it's a story that's fraught with danger. I mean, we also reported this morning that the police investigation team, who by all intents and purposes have done a fantastic job so far, have also faced death threats and also require protection. So this is, you know, representative of our backslide towards a mafia state.
Okay, that's where we will leave it. Don't like that, but okay, you're saying it as you see it. Jeff Wicks, thank you for that. A backslide towards becoming a mafia state. That should sting you and sting me as a direct opposite of when we celebrate some great successes in South Africa on a daily and a weekly basis. But the reality is we have to look at the good and the bad, and we need to reflect on both. This is the National Pulse.
The future of education is here. Impact offers 2 paths to the future. Design your own homeschooling journey with Impact Homeschooling, or let our experienced teachers guide the way with the Impact Online School. Get quality future-forward education. Visit www.impact.co.za today to register for 2025.
The National Thunder trust their game plan will trouble the Sparrow Hawks. However, the Togolese believe they will punch above their weight to secure victory. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Equatorial Guinea collides with Togo on Monday, 9 September at 5 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Bengu, 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 bengu.
This Heritage Month, SAFM invites you to celebrate the rich tapestry of our nation's diverse cultures. From the vibrant beats of our traditional music to the flavors of our unique cuisines, every culture tells a story of strength, unity, and identity. We honor the heroes and heroines who laid down their lives for our freedom, reminding us that our shared heritage is what makes us strong. Together as one, we celebrate who we are because our culture is our identity. This Heritage Month, let's celebrate every culture, every story, and every voice. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, we need to get your thoughts on this issue. It certainly drives the National Pulse today, which is the state of the health or the unhealthy, the healthy or the unhealthy state of South Africa's public hospitals. Mr. Matebe is with us in Middleburg. Hello.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf.
Yeah, leave the Mr. Just Ashraf, okay? Just call. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, I just want to comment on 2 things. First one, let me start with there's a circulating video. I don't know if it KZN or Eastern Cape, where they gather women in a saloon so that they can exit the entrance. They require them to produce the ID documents.
No, I didn't see it, but okay, make the point, just 1 point, because I can't take 2. Just 1 point about it.
Yes, okay, it's fine. So, the reason why I'm so disgusted about that video is that is the members of the uniform, SAPS, that they are checking for illegal immigrants. So, there was a woman, the past month there was a women's march. Because if we can recall 1956, where the women were marching to Union Building against the Tompas. So now they require women to produce their ID documents. They want to check which one is an illegal immigrant or not. So, yeah. So that conduct of theirs, even if they want to check the illegal immigrant, there is a certain procedure that they must follow. Not to take women, gather them in a saloon. We want to check if you are not illegal immigrant or not. Because to the face of ours, it's like they don't respect the rights of other people, the members in uniform. Those ones who did that stop and search, gathering the women in the saloon.
Okay. All right. I hear that. Let's see if anybody else wants to pick up on that and give further comments to that. But thanks for bringing that issue up, Mr. Matebe. We'll chat soon. Andre has a view from Cape Town. Hi, Andre.
Hi, Ashraf. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
I've got 2 hospitals. Victoria Hospital in Wynberg, in Cape Town, which was putrid. I mean, the service, the doctor actually told me to smoke more. Can you believe it? It's a female doctor, young female doctor. She told me to smoke more. I went in for extreme headaches. About a week later, the headaches persisted. I found the ambulance. They took. I asked them to take me to Lentegeur Hospital in Mitchells Plain, the district hospital. And honestly, it's like a private hospital. Really, really and truly, the doctors and the nurses and even the security are wonderful. They were very thorough. They didn't keep me waiting long. They sent me up to a ward. And honestly, the test that they did, and they eventually isolated the problem. And, within a week, I was sorted out. And I'm really, really, really recommend them
Okay, well,
they should have been a private hospital.
Well, but you see, that's the point, Andre. You're getting isolated cases that even within public healthcare, you're getting really good service, and you're also getting shocking service. And the shocking is obviously not acceptable, but there are pockets of brilliance. Maybe the word pockets is not what we want. We should not have pockets of brilliance. We need to have a whole lot more. Thanks for that, Corbett. Let me leave it to you. Lots of people want to comment. I'm interested in not so much even the Tom London story, because I think we can check it out to a large degree. That's true. The big issue is, have you been in a similar situation yourself? Your family member, in public health care, and you find yourself completely compromised, completely helpless, and not knowing what to do next. Here's a final point just for the moment. Ashraf, hi. I've worked in a private hospital as a lower level nurse. I'm now a patient in a provincial and government hospital for many years. Yes, these hospital staff are inundated with patients. However, although it's not their fault, there is not enough staff. There is no excuse for their rudeness. The low-level staff who work hands-on with patients and the cleaning are too few. Yes, the overall look and hygiene conditions are poor. How can that be normal?
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
By the way, we'll have the spokesperson from the DA in Gauteng, Jack Bloom, the DA Shadow MEC for Health. He will give his thoughts of the DA's position regarding what's happened with Helen Joseph Hospital. It comes up shortly. We'll also chat to Dudim Somi coming up in the Growth and Leadership feature that we have every Monday around 10 to 5. Do not miss that. Okay, there's another important issue, that like every issue that's really important. The Legal Resources Centre will return to the Eastern Cape High Court in Makanda this week to advocate for the rights of young learners in the Eastern Cape. Now, why? Well, the case comes up against a backdrop of widespread concern over the dangerous journeys many children face daily just to attend school. It's a complex issue, but it is their right to go to school, isn't it? So what if? Cameron McConaughey is with me, the program head attorney for the education program at the Legal Resource Centre. Appreciate your time. You're connected to the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Thank you. Give us the backstory. What is the issue? What's the problem? How do we solve it?
There are approximately 40,000 learners in the Eastern Cape that have applied for transport and they qualify, but they're not being transported. There's a range of reasons for why this has come up, but there's poor administration of the system. There's the department says that they don't have enough money. The Eastern Cape it's a very rural province, so there are lots of children that do need transport. And it's made up of two of the former homelands, the former Transkei and the former Ciskei, which were, bore the brunt of poor spending during the apartheid era. So poor infrastructure, few roads. So it's sort of a bit of a melting pot of a very big problem.
It certainly is. How does this get resolved? I mean, so one thing is, pleading with the authorities to say, hey, these learners need to go to school and they need to travel long distances, help them. But the other is to take it from a legal perspective. So what's the next step then?
So, we've been to court a couple of times representing the Kula Development Project, which is an NGO based in Pedi. And in this case, we're representing them as well as 3 schools. That is sort of, part A was we wanted transport for 1,100 learners at the 3 schools, and that has been provided now in terms of a settlement agreement for part A. But part B we want broader relief, and that is for all 35,000 of those outstanding applications to be processed, and we want the transport provided. And then we need catch-up plans for those learners that haven't been attending school or have been arriving late. And we'd like the court to retain, supervision on a supervisory order to make sure that they do follow through and implement the order if it is granted.
How much time do you have? I mean, in terms of implementing the order, because you certainly want to get results, but these things tend to drag on, don't they?
Mm-hmm. So we've asked for it to happen as soon as possible, but the first report to court would be required within, I think, 35 days, and then every month thereafter. This case was launched in February, at the beginning of the year. We're fast approaching the 4th term, So there is some urgency, and we hope that the court will treat it that way. So we're in court on Thursday, and we hope that the judge will hand down an order and a judgment fairly soon thereafter.
And what's the response from the authorities? I mean, is it a simple case of we hear you, we understand the plight, we don't have the money, we don't have the resources, we can't do much, or is it something else?
So it's two things. One is just as you've described it, we don't have the budget, but our answer to that is, well, you haven't really explained what steps you've taken to try and find the budget. What have you done? Who did you ask? When did you ask for it? That's the one part. And secondly, this is the right to basic education, which is immediately realizable. And budget constraints are not an excuse. The second response has been that they are going to review the Eastern Cape provincial transport policy and suggest that will, the revised policy will iron out some of the kinks and make it all the problems go away. But again, we don't think that that's a reasonable response. So in the meantime, as we end up, then how does this impact on the learners? I mean, what are the numbers we're referring to, and then what happens to their lives and their learning programs? So in taking statements from our clients, there's sort of four main impacts. One is they have to walk incredibly far, and often it's unsafe and dangerous. Two, some families try to pay for transport, but that generally means using up social grants, which are not meant for scholar transport, and taking out loans from loan sharks and going into extreme debt. Three, generally parents try to move their children closer to the school so that they don't have to do the transport, but then they don't have the support of family, so they have to rent somewhere close to the school, and that comes with a whole host of problems. And then four, a lot of children just drop out. It's a big cause for concern. I think everybody's on side with you and the organization that you represent, but the fact is, again, it has to be speeded up some way or the other. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. Cameron McConaughey, the program lead attorney for the education program at the Legal Resource Centre. So they are having to take the matter to court. Shouldn't be like that, isn't it? But that is a reality. Right, let's get to further comments. There's a whole lot of people commenting via WhatsApp, and understandably. So, by the way, if you are listening wherever you may be in the country, around the world, local, global, certainly want to hear from you. What about just sending us a picture of where you are? And particularly if you're a first-time listener, well, tell us why you're listening and where you're listening from. But if you want to send a picture, that's fantastic. You can WhatsApp us to that picture, 0614 104 107. Nice picture of you or where you're locked into the dial at SFM. That'll be great. You can also post it on Facebook as well as on the SFM Twitter platform. Just hook us up on X, okay? Right, there's the issues of private and public, but Helen Joseph is one thing. Clinic Brixton, close by.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, next door to you then, Brixton. That Crosby Clinic. That clinic, when it was built, was proportional to the residents of Brixton, South Africans. Just make a 10 on Monday there. You can blame nurses and doctors, it's fine. Make a 10 on Monday there. You find a long queue. Pregnant women from Malawi, from Zimbabwe, from all over Africa, they are there. Are they contributing to the pairs so that the health can improve? The health facilities can improve. We can blame the doctors, yes, it's fine. Anonymous.
Well, I mean, I hear you, but I think it's a slightly different subject. We've discussed this often. You in the country legally, illegally. Illegally is another conversation. Legally, you hear. Certainly, any country has to have a humane space for people from outside the country, whoever they are. That must be part of your allocation in terms of a country. In fact, South Africa is a huge beneficiary in terms of the many people who had to flee this country in the opposition to apartheid because their lives were in danger. And many countries propel them, help them up, get them a lift. So we can't discard the reasons people come, which is not the issue. It's a different issue regarding whether they are here illegally or not. That can't be. They're not 50 million people. There's a problem for 50 million, 60 million people. How do we resolve that? Let's get the news headlines. Here's Madupi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garda, and good afternoon. In your headlines this hour, law firms Richard Spoor and LHL attorneys have embarked on a campaign calling on the Tiger brands to compensate victims of the listeriosis outbreak. The ANC says Thembi Sibelani's fate as the Justice Minister lies squarely in the hands of President Cyril Ramaphosa. And a group of 26 young South Africans who are competing in the World Skills Competition in Lyon, France, say they are ready to fly the SA flag high. Details with Greg coming up at 5.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg, queuing towards Crown Interchange. The R24 eastbound in Bedfordview has delays opposite Eastgate Mall. In Centurion, the N1 southbound has a crash near Old Johannesburg Road, and the N1 southbound has a crash reported just before Botha Avenue. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Camperdown, an earlier stationary truck near Umlaus Road has been cleared, but traffic is still slow moving. The N2 southbound is slow moving towards Spaghetti Junction, and the N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle near Sibaya Drive. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound slow moving towards Racecourse Road. Baden-Powell Drive in Muizenberg has thick sand on the carriageway near Coastal Park. Slankorp Road in Kommetjie has a truck crash reported, and you're asked to expect delays. And the N1 outbound is slow moving towards Plattekloof. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Kapele.
Right, Toby, we touched on Bafana earlier. You have an update on that story.
Yes, Bafana coach Hugo Bruce says that he's definitely going to make changes to the side when they face South Sudan in their second 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier in Juba tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. South Africa nearly suffered a first official home match defeat under Bruce on Friday when Uganda took a surprise 2-1 lead, only for Talente Mbata to save Bafana blushes with a late stoppage time equalizer to ensure a point. Bafana have to win in Juba to get a foothold back on Group K that is currently led by Congo, who beat South Sudan 1-0 in their opening game in Brazzaville on Thursday. Elsewhere, England captain Harry Kane will earn his 100th cap for his country when they host Finland in the Nations League, and that is at Wembley tomorrow evening, becoming the 10th player to reach the mark. The 31-year-old Bayern Munich striker, who has scored 66 goals in 99 appearances for England since his debut back in 2015, is the first player to become an England men's centurion since striker Wayne Rooney in November 2014. Before kickoff, the FA will also pay tribute to former England manager Sven-Göran Eriksson, who died at the age of 76 last month. In cricket, Dolphin women's bowler Zinhle Mali has declared her team's readiness for the upcoming domestic cricket season, with the Hollywood Bets Pro Season League set to start next month. Last month, Cricket South Africa and Hollywood Bets signed a 1-year sponsorship deal to support women's cricket, and Mali is urging other corporations to back the women's game and contribute to its growth. She is excited about competing in the 6-team league.
Well, it's pretty simple. I think we won the last season one-day cup, and we are the champions. And our aim for the upcoming season, we are looking forward to it, and we're very excited. The main goal is to maintain our one-day cup trophy and work hard on the T21 so that we can also win the both formats, and we're really working hard for that. We just want to stay champions and keep our brand and our name on the top. The preparations are very good. We've been on the off-season since May. We've been working hard, we've been training hard, and the dedication within my team, I can see it's very ethic, and we really looking forward to this season, and the hard work has been put in within the yard.
In rugby, the Sharks have officially confirmed the return of Siya Kolisi following the Springbok captain's release from his contract with Racing 92. The announcement comes less than 24 hours after the French club confirmed that Kolisi had left the Parisian with 2 years of his contract still on the run. Now, Kolisi will return to the Sharks after completing his duties with the Springboks in the Rugby Championship, having led South Africa to back-to-back wins over the All Blacks in Johannesburg and Cape Town. The two-time Two-time World Cup winner spent 3 seasons with the Sharks in his first stint in Durban. That was between 2021 and 2023, making 31 appearances and scoring 4 tries. And Kolisi says that he's looking forward to returning to the Sharks. It'll be interesting to see him playing his trade for the Sharks again. That's it from my side. I'm looking forward in the next hour. I'll be chatting to Proteas woman captain Laura Fulvard, who just walked away with 5 awards at the Cricket SA Awards. So I'm looking forward to the chat.
I'm going to look forward to listening to it and maybe just butting in, maybe, but I know my place. Looking forward to it. Just a quick one. Siya Kolisi, back with the Sharks. Is it good for him and good for South Africa? Yes, no?
I mean, hey.
That's like a line out. It's crumb. It's like, okay, I'll let you know later on.
Is it good for him to return to South Africa? I mean, it's always great to have good talent within the country, but I would assume that when you play internationally, you bring some sort of a different dimension to your play as a whole. But it's good to have him back.
Well, Sharks will be delighted. I mean, some may question again, his legacy is somewhat now checkered regarding that club. But at the same time, as they said, maybe he's not that fit. He's performing amazingly within like a couple of weeks for South Africa.
Does he look overweight?
No, well, that's what
he said. Yeah, that's what
I don't know better.
said.
I don't know better. I'm not a rugby coach. Yeah. All right, more sports and your interview coming up in an hour's time. Right.
This September, S3 brings you thought-provoking nature dockies that will change the way in which you view the world. Prince William embarks on a global mission to ensure our world is left in a better place for future generations, championing action for the natural world and showcasing pioneering local heroes. Prince William, A Planet for Us All, airs Sunday the 15th of September. Channel your inner activist with our selection of premium dockies Sundays at 5 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
There's no road our buckies haven't traveled on. Roads to new beginnings. Roads to many firsts.
Sasa, enjoy the day at school.
Roads to delivering precious cargo.
Breathe, honey. We're almost there.
Even roads to saving the day.
Hey, we're gonna have to tow you.
With every road that we've traveled for 45 years, we are what a bucky should be. Bold, capable, and reliable. Introducing the new limited edition D-Max 45, equipped with everything you need for every kind of adventure. Isuzu, with you for the long run.
It is Game On!
Game On!
It is where the real lovers of the game dive deep into detail of the upcoming local and international fixtures. Join us on Game On as Mr. Sizwe, Flick Flick Bang Mapena, and the legends zoom closer to the thrilling performance of the pitch personnel.
How is your favorite team's performance?
Find out on Game On every Saturday at 2 p.m. on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com.
SABC Sport.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Okay, let's get to the markets with Makwe Masilelo, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. So I understand that we have local and global news, of course, but also with one eye on the holidays, Sun International's interim results should be telling. Makwe, go ahead.
Afternoon to you and to your listeners. Indeed, the share price is up 3%. Robust trading performance for Sun International, and that was underpinned by the strength of their diversified operating model. Group income up 5%, with gaming income constituting 77% and growing by 3.4%, and the casino income grew by 2.2%. And Sunbet continued its strong growth. Slots income unfortunately declined. Profits as adjusted earnings per share up 9%, and the interim dividend is up 8.8%. And Ashraf, China's economy picture is worsening with deflation risk going up, and the U.S. is poised to reduce interest rates as inflation cools and the labor market slows. Big question now is whether a small rate cut will be enough to keep the U.S. economy in expansion mode. And meanwhile, the European Central Bank will probably cut rates this Thursday. Investors are waiting for U.S. inflation data on Wednesday to gauge the size of an expected rate cut, and a renewed wave of deep buying revived expect a rebound when it comes to stocks after a sell-off triggered by economic concerns and the risk of production disruptions from potential hurricane approaching the U.S. Gulf Coast helped oil prices to go up after last week's heavy losses. Oil is up 0.8% at $71, and yellow metal is ticking up as rate cuts will lessen the opportunity cost of holding the non-yielding metal. Is up 0.4% at 2,497. Platinum is up 2% at 941. Ashraf global markets are in a happy mode with the JSE up 0.6% led by financials and the rand not doing bad, 1786 against the US dollar, 2338 against the pound and 1972 against the euro.
Perfect. Thanks for that, and we'll connect with you tomorrow. Of course, more market updates coming up in about 50 minutes or so. Right. Let's get your opinion. Anybody does not want to talk about the state of the healthy or the unhealthy state of South Africa's public health care? I don't know. I'm struggling to find anybody else who has anything else to say. I can understand why, absolutely. By the way, there's a comment, listening on the road. Thanks for keeping me company. Love the picture, by the way. Tell me your name so I know, so I can give you a shout out in which town that you are in right now, because I'd love to do that. And if you have others, send it out as well. Where you from, where you now, where you're listening from, and send a picture with your dial locked onto SFM. Great if you do that. Temba is in East London. Hi, Temba.
Hi, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm good indeed. Go ahead. What's your point?
Ashraf, the situation at Helen Joseph is not unique to public hospitals. I've been admitted to private hospital. The fact that the gentleman has made a video from the oncology ward, given the investigations that are being done, it's a specialist ward. The same with me, that's what happened. But what I discovered, the doctors, the specialists there are not obligated to talk to patients. By the way, they don't want to talk to patients because for them speaking to patients, it takes a lot of their time. It's written on the notices in the private hospital. The doctors are not obligated to speak to you. You will get the explanation from your home doctor or your family doctor, so to speak. So it's not an issue of them being cold. It's an issue of division of work. To get to hospital, you must be referred by your family doctor, and your family doctor is the one who will visit you in hospital, who will read the file, who will explain the sickness. To this day, I do not know the extent of the damage on my back. I do not know whether I will have to live with medication or with pain, because the doctors, those specialists, neurologists, they do not have the time to speak to you as a patient. So it's not an issue of that is unique to Helen Joseph. It's a division of work. The doctors are encouraging us to go to doctors for referral to hospitals.
Well, I hear you. Okay, I got that. I mean, I also think one of the key aspects of administering good health care, and I'm not a medical doctor or a nurse, right, is to have a sense of compassion and empathy. I think it is a very, very important thing to give people hope when there's a sense of hopelessness around them. So it's not just explanation, but like putting your arms around them. Now, having said that, Temba, I hear you completely. They are under severe pressure, so maybe they're like, hey, hold it, you know what? You don't talk to them, we'll get somebody else to do. But then who does talk to them? Because somebody has to talk, no matter what your state of health is as a person. The next most important thing is for someone to explain to you exactly where you are. It's very difficult being in a situation where nobody tells you what to do, which I'm not suggesting, by the way, that that's always normal. I think there are many places where doctors talk to them all the time. The question is when they don't, it doesn't make it okay. It's not okay. Joe in Kabeja, hi.
Good day, Ashraf.
Yeah, good talking to you. Go ahead, Joe.
Great stuff. No, my latest experience with public hospitals is that last week I was in Etom, in the Eastern Cape, and 4 children actually got burned with hot water. I did a basic first aid of trying to cool down the area where they got burned and rushed them to the hospital. And yeah, our state of health is challenging when the duty doctor on a Saturday leaves a post with clients there, crying children, leaves them for an hour and a half so she can go buy food at the local supermarket. And then if that's not enough, you are told at a place where you're supposed to open a file for these children that they will not be seen unless they pay 50 rand each. Now, I didn't have a challenge paying the 50 rand each for the child. But the idea is this is a public hospital. It's an emergency. Your doctor just drove out of the hospital, leaving clients there, crying children, and still they will not be assisted unless you pay.
And that's
and I ask myself the question: Why? Why are we there? How did we get to a stage where the state of health, especially in Cape, all the rural areas, is so poor?
Well, I mean, that's the point. Whatever the circumstances are, and the purpose between you and I is not to have a 1-hour chat about it, but simply to say, how can this ever be okay and think this is normal? And the point that has been brought up before, thanks for that, Joe, is that the Tom London story is not unique. It's unique in a sense that he is a person with a public profile because he's been a broadcaster on many platforms and a content creator that can churn out a video while in hospital. Not many people can do that, we know that, and that allowed it to spread and go viral. That's the unique aspect, which then effectively created the multiplier effect, which is necessary often to bring attention. But the truth is that the only experience at public hospitals? No, there's thousands of people who talk about bringing their own blankets and having to clean up things and like things that are completely beyond what's acceptable. And this is a country that is able to do 10 other things right and then get 20 other things wrong. There is something wrong here, and as really, as someone who loves his country, I love my country, but we must also highlight what is wrong in undermining our country. Zakele, let's get your thoughts. Hi.
Ashraf, how are you?
Yeah, good talking to you. Thank you. Thanks for calling in.
I just want to be quick. Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, before he went to Home Affairs, he was in health.
Yeah.
And he introduced the 6 key points. And one of those was the bad staff attitude in our healthcare services generally. The staff attitude was identified as one of the elements that are actually killing the healthcare system. You get a nurse that are moonlighting, even doctors and other professionals that are moonlighting in private hospitals. Mm-hmm. They start working in the public health sector in the morning by 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock when they knock off, whatever. They go in moonlight. You follow that particular nurse. We had a situation at some point when I was working in health where you follow these people. When you get them at private, they are smiling, they are happy, everything is just fine, as if they are not exhausted. But when you get them in the public sector, they like the attitude changes. I don't know for what reason, but then one of the issues that we identify is that there's a high number of shortage of staff, key staff, in the healthcare sector, because the ratio, the nurse-patient ratio, it doesn't tally. The nurse is more specializing a lot. You ask a question, who should then speak to this patient that the doctor is not willing to speak to? And nurses are at the receiving end because they spend more time and hours with these nurses that are on bed. The doctor just comes there, asks the nurse, what is the problem, look at the file, do whatever that is supposed to be done quickly, then the patient needs to go to theater, the patient will be taken to theater for operation or whatever. But then you give hope to the hopeless. I think that should be the norm in all the healthcare servants, to say, just give hope. It doesn't take long for you to say, you know what, I'm here, my name is so-and-so, I'm here to help you, and how are you? Just that.
I agree completely, yeah. And even in the worst case scenario, assuming a person's position is terminal, and it happens, right? Even that, if you explain to the person their position, they can then make the necessary mental and spiritual adjustments in their own lives. People need compassion, no matter who they are, where they are, and what their state of life is at that point in time. So thanks for that. Yeah, thanks for that. Really important calls. Let's get another quick one regarding the government.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to SFM listeners. Ashraf, do we have to make brouhaha first for government to address our issues? Do we have to take our issues to the media? Do we have to make our issues to go viral for the government to address our issues? Wow. Thanks very much. This is Tapelo in Zanin.
Tapelo, the answer probably is yes, yes, and yes. Sadly so.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. You love drama? Then step into the world of Luther as he cracks down on criminals terrorizing the streets of London Monday to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Top Gear will have you falling in love and rolling in laughter as Jeremy Clarkson and his team take you on an automotive journey like no other, Monday to Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
Hey, Mike, congratulations on your retirement.
Thanks, Andile. Are you preparing for it?
Yes, but not just for myself.
For you and?
For me and my employees.
Oh.
You know, since we moved to Old Mutual Corporate, their retirement funds have not only been safe and secure, but gaining competitive returns through exposure to diverse investment markets.
Impressive.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
EFC is live this Thursday. The bantamweight title is on the line, live from the World Sports Betting Arena, as the top-ranked divisional contenders and perennial fan favorites Faiz Jacobs and Vince Bembe go to war.
Oh, big right for Faiz Jacobs. The finish is over. What a win. When he smells blood, he hunts mercilessly for the finish.
EFC is live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, we are going to speak to Jack Bloom, the DA Shadow MEC for Health in Gauteng, getting their perspective regarding the goings-on at Helen Joseph Hospital, but also other public healthcares in Gauteng and by extension, obviously, the rest of the country. That comes up after 5. Do not miss that. What we're also going to do is, and we do this today, is to start spending some attention to personal growth. We think it's that important. So one of the people around personal growth and personal leadership that we need to talk to, top of mind, is Dudu Mtsomi, who's done many things in that space. And really the plan is to give the type of insights that she's got to share with you so that you can grow in your own space. Dudu, appreciate your time. You're connected to the National Pulse for the first time since my return.
Yes. Good afternoon. Happy spring. Happy Monday.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Right. Well, listen, you've got this responsibility of sharing insights around personal growth and leadership. So maybe you tell me where you want to start.
Well, personal growth for me comes from the ability to lead yourself effectively. So in order to know how to grow, you need to know where you want to go to. And where you want to go to hangs on your ability to shape and influence yourself into that future. So, and in terms of growth, I think everybody may have different definitions in terms of what they mean in their lives. In the context that I am most interested in is around development, in terms of continuing to be effective and relevant in whichever space you're in. So if you are in a corporate setting, in a particular job, how am I going to continually grow so that I'm adding value and able to either get promoted but always be seen as a valuable contributor to the environment that I'm in.
It's a good point. I mean, just thinking, besides the obvious skill set that people would have, let's say like myself, maybe the skill set to be able to broadcast, there are other issues as well, how you communicate with other people, how do you work in a team, and then the mental aspect and your approach to of how you immerse yourself in the mental aspect and how it impacts on you. Meaning, the point I want to make is that that must differ from person to person and must play a huge role in personal development, particularly in the workspace.
And in context, most things in life, it's about context. So how you are as a program director, Ashraf, and how you are on the radio are two different things, but similar. There are similar skill sets, there's similar kind of knowledge, but your audiences, that vehicle you're using to communicate, using broadcast versus if you are in front of people face-to-face. Just like when we got into the remote working world, when we had to be using Zoom and Teams, we had to adopt a new skill set. So everything around skills also has a context, and we always have to keep evolving. And that's where most of us miss the point of becoming stagnant and too comfortable. You always have to keep moving, and not just about certificates and degrees. It's about attending seminars. It's about listening to talk shows. It's about watching interesting, podcasts, reading. It's a wide range. Observing, interacting with people from different ages, different cultures. That's what makes a human being more effective in this global environment.
Okay, so you're talking of a lifelong journey of learning. What then do you say to people who go to work, do the best job that they possibly can do, but then they don't do any of the above, as in what you've just mentioned, purely because they are exhausted? They come home, there's multiple issues that are competing for their space, family and other issues, right? So what do you say to that when there's a sense of, okay, I'd like to do this, but I can't? So they give up the personal learning outside what is prescribed learning in the workspace.
The nice thing is we have technology, so we have no excuse. Our technology, you can download audiobooks, you can watch things. I don't, especially in certain environments, I actually like washing my dishes by hand and not putting them in the dishwasher. And I usually have maybe a YouTube something happening. So while I'm washing dishes, even when I'm making up my bed in the morning, I'm always exposing myself to new knowledge. It shouldn't always be just negative news, and it shouldn't always be things that are clickbait, like we do watching celebrities and whatever. You could literally decide for yourself, this is a world of AI. I should get acquainted. What is that about? Because the more you are finding ways of not progressing, the more vulnerable you become. And that's going to create a lot of fear, because the older we get also, the more seemingly our opportunities seem to shrink in certain areas. But if we're always keeping ourselves up to date, you're always able to find a new opportunity for yourself. Absolutely.
So maybe just to wrap up, we're speaking to, obviously an audience that is local as well as global, and they're widespread. So we have to generalize. It's supposed to be very specific. But let's say typically a person listening in, right, who is battling with enhancing his or her personal growth in life, right? Maybe 3 key takeouts you'd like to give them.
Well, first of all, just be aware of yourself, what it is that makes you excited about life. One of the questions I like asking is, whatever you do you like jumping out of bed? And when you don't, it talks to you don't really enjoy what you're doing. So try and find that. And if it's not able to be something you earn your living on, then try and do it during the weekend so it keeps your spirit up. Also, just have the discipline. There is no way around it. You have to create those moments, even if it's 5 minutes of learning something new that's outside of your specialization. If you're in HR, learn about finance. If you're in marketing, learn about operations. Whatever it is, if you're an entrepreneur particularly, always make sure you are a generalist more than just a specialist. Get into the areas that are just uncomfortable for you. And then lastly, it's just really try and enjoy life as much as possible. So the more you enjoy life, the more you are curious about things, because really personal growth is also around curiosity. But tap into the diverse people around you. There are people that you pass by and you don't interact with. Next time, passing a security guard, talk to them. Next time there is somebody who is cleaning your garden, talk to them. It sparks different things. When you are at the cashier checking out, you'll be surprised. I mean, I've found that a number of times. Oh, this one couldn't get a scholarship. Actually wants to do engineering. It just makes you interested about life. And it makes you also want to improve yourself.
Absolutely. Maybe spend some time in terms of those human interactions just to grow as human beings. Because there are touch points outside your family and home every single moment, every single day. Goodness, you might as well enjoy it. You will grow when you do just that, right? Much appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. We'll certainly put up a podcast of this as well shortly. And if you're up for it, do feel free to just maybe post 3 or 4 of these comments that you've shared on Facebook as well as on Twitter. Just tag myself and SFM Radio. We will gladly share it. Thank you for your time. Let's get the news now. It's Greg Coast. It's 5 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, a campaign to compensate listeriosis victims and SA students head to France for World Skills event. Good day to you. Law firms Richard Spoor attorneys and LHL attorneys have embarked on a campaign calling on Tiger Brands to compensate victims of the listeriosis outbreak. During the 2017-2018 outbreak, the National Institute for Communicable Diseases verified that the meat processing factory owned by Tiger Brands subsidiary Enterprise Foods in Polokwane had signs of a genetic variation of listeria. At the time, over 1,000 cases of listeriosis were confirmed. 218 of those were fatal. Associate Attorney at Richard Spoor, Zanele Malindi.
We actually had a few clients come to our offices recently to do some interviews, and it was exclusively women who had lost their children, either neonates or just born, or had miscarried their children. It's really difficult, and people are really suffering, which is, again, why I say, sometimes justice delayed is justice denied. Of course, there's physical consequences to listeriosis, children who have cerebral palsy because of this, really bad developmental delays. So there is a physical, consequence to this.
The ANC's Secretary General Fikile Mbalula says Thembi Sibilani's fate as the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development lies in the hands of the President. His comments follow corruption allegations levelled against Sibilani, who received R500,000 from a broker who canvassed for loans from VBS Mutual Bank. Ivan Bulula says Sibilani will be subjected to the ANC's Integrity Commission.
So in as far as how she is affected by the debacle in relation to her responsibilities as a minister, playing an executive role in terms of the cabinet of the country, that is the prerogative of the president to deal with that. Whether or not this minister is fit, given the report that is got on the table, to continue.
2 accused drug lords have been denied bail by the Groblersdal Magistrates Court in Limpopo. The accused wanted to be granted bail. Their 3 Mexican co-accused abandoned their bail applications. The accused were running what is suspected to be Africa's largest drug manufacturing lab on a farm in Groblersdal. Farmers and other stakeholders have gathered at the annual conference of the Agricultural Economics Association of SA in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro in the Eastern Cape. It's meant to address the impacts of climate change on crop production and to come up with solutions to mitigate severe effects. Provincial Rural Development MEC Nonceba Konsiwe.
Yes, they are bringing some technologies to at least first look at the situation and then be able to detect the conditions of weather so that people are ready for them when that happens. At least they are ready and have ways and means of mitigating with such conditions. So our food security is really dependent on the weather conditions, both the climate and the rains that will come. So we are grateful to be invited here so that we input and get the facts and ways of mitigating with such conditions.
A group of 26 young South Africans who are competing in the World Skills Competition in France say they're ready to fly the flag high. They're part of over 1,400 students from TVET institutions around the world who are champions in their respective countries. They'll compete in 62 artisan skill categories like beauty therapy, bricklaying, aircraft maintenance and much more. These competitors say they're ready to showcase what the country has to offer.
I'm in Lyon to represent South Africa under the big skills. The training is very difficult, but right now I'm ready to compete and I will make sure that I will make it. I will come back with something to South Africa.
A skill which is fashion technology, skill number 31, and I'm a competitor and competing against other 25 competitors from different countries.
Another competitor is 20-year-old Katlego Malloy, who's competing in the category of beauty therapy.
TVET colleges are the way to go because after studying at a TVET college, you can get a job immediately because unfortunately businesses are looking for people that they're not going to teach every single thing. In TVET colleges, it's more practical than it is theory. And just because you didn't get into the varsity you wanted to go to, it's not the end of the world. In fact, it's a door closed opening to a bigger door and more opportunities, because in TVET colleges, they teach you the skill and they teach you the theory. Opportunities are endless. I could grow on a cruise ship if I wanted to. I could start my own business if I wanted to.
The top story, 2 law firms have embarked on a campaign calling on Tiger Brands to compensate victims of the listeriosis outbreak. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Gous.
In sports, the Sawa Bruce to ring changes for South Sudan. Clash Ngidi returns for Proteas white ball series against Afghanistan and Ireland. And then the spotlight is on Proteas women captain Laura Fulvard, who we chat to about her recent success. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Lindbergh Park has a stationary vehicle near Marlborough Drive. The N12 R24 westbound in Bedfordview has a stationary vehicle at Kiluli's interchange, queuing traffic on both routes. The M1 southbound is queuing through Crown interchange towards Boysons. In Midrand, the N1 northbound is slow moving towards Samrand Road, and the N1 northbound has a crash just before New Road. In KZN, the M1 Higginson Highway westbound in Chatsworth is queuing towards Westcliff exit. The N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. The N2 southbound also has a crash reported before Sibaya Drive exit. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound is slow moving towards Racecourse Road. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound slow moving towards Hospital Bend. The N7 Jakes Havel Drive both ways queuing at Voortrekker Road, and the N1 outbound queuing towards Okavango Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This September, S3 brings you thought-provoking nature dockies that will change the way in which you view the world. Prince William embarks on a global mission to ensure our world is left in a better place for future generations, championing action for the natural world and showcasing pioneering local heroes. Prince William, A Planet for Us All, airs Sunday the 15th of September. Channel your inner activist with our selection of premium dockies Sundays at 5 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
The National Thunder trust their game plan will trouble the Sparrow Hawks. However, the Togolese believe they will punch above their weight to secure victory. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Equatorial Guinea collides with Togo on Monday, 9 September at 5 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Shelley, I'm looking at a tweet from Sean Bolton from the Kathwanda Foundation, talking about remembering Babla Saluji, which I thought is interesting. So here's this Babla Suleiman Saluji was an activist of the Transvaal Indian Congress, as you know, then later on aligned with the African National Congress, who died in detention at the Special Branch of the South African Police on this day, 9th of September 1964. And the story goes that on the 9th of September, Babla Saluji met his death after allegedly falling, in inverted commas, from the 7th floor window of Gray's building, the headquarters of the Special Branch of the South African Police, right? I mean, here's the point. So that happened in 1964. There are so many stories. We tend to focus on the one or two big ones, right? But there are so many stories of people being bumped off in the past for their opposition to apartheid. And I'm sure every family, if you don't have a direct family member, you may have an extended member of family of a family who was bumped off or put into detention, who may not be the big names that we know. If that's the case, feel free to tell me about it. Just even a text message or a WhatsApp voice note, 0614 104 107, or you can call in. If I get a chance, I'll certainly take your call, 086 000 2032. Right, there's no question what the biggest story of the day is in terms of what is it that moves the National Pulse. It is reflecting on the unhealthy state of South Africa's healthcare. Reflecting because of pronouncements coming in particular from Tom London, the broadcaster, the content creator, while in hospital at the Helen Joseph Hospital. Of all names, it's named after an absolute icon. And he effectively, Tom London, put out a video being very, very disappointed and disillusioned and saying that in fact patients were treated like cockroaches. I mean, that's his words. I put that, so we'll chat to Jack Bloom coming up shortly, but I put that thought to Dr. Mbuyizwe Mzukwa, who's the chairperson of the South African Medical Association, and suggested to him, or asked him, whether he's in agreement that Tom London's testimony is as close to the reality of the experience of healthcare and the overall conditions at Helen Joseph Hospital. And this is what Dr. Mzukwa said.
You will know that it is not a norm for a doctor or any healthcare worker, by the way, to be treating a patient in that fashion that is described by Tom. And there's no justification whatsoever of, healthcare workers not having that sympathy towards patients. However, we need not forget, the underlying mental issues that state healthcare workers are going through. For example, the fact that people like Tim DeMeyer wrote a letter, open letter, expressing the frustrations that, state healthcare workers are facing in dealing with patients and dealing with numbers when there's a dire shortage of these doctors or healthcare workers, but also the conditions under which they work, where you find that when they go out to management to express their frustrations, they are not listened to. At times, they are threatened by a disciplinary action and all these things. So, and not only Tim DeMeyer, but also there are credible reports that were written by the then health ombuds, who expressly stated, the conditions that he found in the Eastern Cape and in Gauteng. In Gauteng, in fact, he said, this is the best province that is run by a Mickey Mouse. And with the Eastern Cape, he said the Eastern Cape was an embarrassment. So you can imagine, if doctors and other people are working in such conditions, and when they express their frustrations, nobody listens. And instead they are pushed to work and stuff like that. So you can imagine the burnout and all the mental illness, that mental well-being around those issues. But I need to stress again, this is not to justify what has happened there at Helen Joseph, but I'm just echoing the underlying conditions in there.
So those underlying conditions are a concern, because that seems to be like an accepted fact to say that's the reality. So they're underperforming. This is why they're underperforming. So earlier on, the Gauteng Health Head of Communication, and that's Motalatale Modiba, well, he spoke to Lasizwe Simelane on the morning brief. Listen to that news show from 6 to 9 every morning. He spoke to him about the Department of Health and the fact that they are now investigating the issue.
The infrastructure issues, I think in the statement that we shared, it's something that we have long acknowledged, even during the budget vote. Some of the infrastructural challenge that we have insofar as the state of the infrastructure, some of it being old and so forth. And we outlined a program of maintenance and refurbishment that we are currently rolling out. In the very same facility that we're talking about, we just about 3 months ago, we opened a newly refurbished accident and emergency unit, which has now been expanded and so forth as part of the program that we're currently having. So, of course, the facilities, which there would be areas like the one where the ward where the gentleman was at, which you have already alluded to the issue of the taps and the bathrooms there and so forth, which would require certain work to be done there.
In fact, that was about commenting on overall infrastructure. The next issue was about investigating.
The investigation, obviously, there are allegations made around healthcare workers in the facility in terms of the treatment that they would have been given to Tom London. And I think at the heart of this main issue, from what we can gather, is he seems to be alleging that he was not treated properly. The kind of treatment that was given, and that obviously, if it's an allegation in the sense that we need to also then investigate and also question those that would have been on duty at that time and look at the type of treatment that he was given and so forth. Clinically speaking, when we got the report yesterday, it looked like clinically he was given the right medical attention, but I think there are softer issues insofar as patient experience of care is concerned. The attitude that he referred to consistently, it's something that we're dealing with, and I think hence we have now obviously rolling out a program of I Serve with a Smile, which we started in November. We're still rolling out to several facilities, and that program was introduced precisely because we acknowledge that we have had a chronic challenge of the attitude that sometimes we give to patients when they come to our facilities. And
okay, so earlier on, Tom London, in terms of his video, we shared, he spoke about, describing the treatment to patients as cockroaches, right? He also painted a picture of the aesthetics of the ward in terms of cleanliness and hygiene. This is what he said.
Oh, by the way, I'm lucky to be talking to you on this phone because last night as I was sleeping, a woman came into the room, took the phone from right next to my head and stole it. Luckily, the guy opposite me saw it, woke me up, said, "Tom, someone's just stolen your phone." I got another guy to call it, and I heard it ringing from down the passage, and I tracked her down to a ward where she was trying to remove the SIM card. So I'm very lucky to be talking to you on this phone. Let's go into Ward 8. The doctors here, you give doctors a bad name. All of you. Despicable human beings. Right? Here, taps. What, do you think it works? Nah, that tap doesn't work. Let's check the ceilings out. Well, they're peeling and flaking and stuffed. Right? All of this is rusted. This is my bed. The plug doesn't work, it's blown. That's all rusted. I am so angry with you. This is the Helen Joseph Circus Hospital, where doctors experiment on you. Now, earlier on, I put a video up of the guy opposite me who was busy dying. I'm going to turn this camera around, right? He's dead. He died 20 minutes ago. He's lying there in that bed. He's actually gone. He's dead. Now, our government wants us to believe that the NHI is going to do great things for us. But here's just a few minutes in the day in the life of the Helen Joseph Circus Hospital, where the doctors talk about their cars and their clothes and their bonuses while people lie dying in front of them.
Okay, that's the testimony. And we often don't do this, but we must, to get the human story around issues. So when we talk about NHI or when we're talking about, road accidents, you tend to speak at government level and ministerial level. And this testimony, yes, he's a well-known person, but this is a personal testimony that does strike a chord. It strikes home, isn't it? And therefore, the response. So we'll certainly get Vusani to post a video clip of some of the things that we've shared on SAFM, on the Twitter platform, as well as on Facebook, so you can check it out. But the sounds clearly resonate, and you can hear that very clearly, his sense of absolute desperation. Now, here's the point. Not everything about that hospital is bad. I've already said so before. I've experienced, not as a patient, certainly going to visit there. It's very, very different. But there's sufficient grounds in that hospital and many other public hospitals, confirmed by the chairperson of the South African Medical Association, to say, actually, sadly, that's the norm. The question is, how can that norm be the norm?
Another day, another set of challenges. In a world driven by shifting demands, environment, social and governance, what guides your decision-making? We need a new generation of ethical leaders who have their eye on the bigger picture, who are not daunted by change, but inspired by it. Let Wits Business School guide your leadership journey. With our postgraduate programs, you can play a role in Africa's sustainable future. Apply today and make 2025 your year of impact. Visit wbs.ac.za for more.
Niger have a mammoth task to silence their regional neighbors, Ghana. Meanwhile, the Black Stars want to bring back the glory days and triumph this West African derby. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Niger tackles Ghana on Monday, 9 September at 6 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
So, of course, you have your own opinions about that. There are different experiences. I think it's less about the NHI today, quite honestly, and less about public or private healthcare, but more about the state of the current hospital, or hospitals in the plural sense, as they stand, as now amplified by Tom London. Jack Bloom is with me. He's the DA Shadow, MEC for Health in Gauteng. So let's get their perspective in terms of how Jack Bloom sees it. Appreciate your time, Jack. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon. Good to be with you.
Absolutely. Thank you. But of course, we talked to you at a time of not celebration, but huge disturbance, right? What do you make of the Tom London testimony, the Tom London narrative? Confession, maybe. Yeah.
Well, obviously, it's his authentic record of his particular experience, and you must realize that there's, thousands of patients who experience this every day who don't manage to post it on social media, and in fact, they're scared to complain because, their lives are literally in the hands of staff members, and that's why they keep quiet. But I don't think the rest of us should keep quiet, and I think he's done us all a favor by highlighting once again what dire conditions there can be in our hospitals. Look, there is a mixed picture. There really are some angels in our public health service who do their best in very difficult circumstances. There's staff vacancies, they're overburdened, hospitals are falling apart. Staff at hospitals are also victims of a grossly ineffective Gauteng Health Department, and I have to say a huge amount of corruption, as we saw with the Tembisa Hospital scandal that the Bita Deokaran was murdered because she tried to expose us. So that's the broader context, and we have to ask ourselves why, after all the promises, after all these years, I've sat through every single health MEC since 1994, and they've all made grandiose promises, and frankly, nothing has ever worked to make a meaningful difference in public health in Gauteng. Every year, the Auditor General gives an absolutely terrible report, and he makes recommendations. The recommendations are not followed through, and then the next year we get a similar bad report. Now, it can be done because the Western Cape Health Department, run by the DA, in fact, gets a clean audit every year. So if one province can do it, why can't other provinces, especially Gauteng? Gauteng should be the best resourced health system in South Africa because we have 4 medical schools. No other province has as many medical schools as we have, and academic hospitals, and a massive budget. The budget is close to 65 billion rand. But I can tell you now, a lot of it, far too much, is just wasted or stolen. And estimate by the SIU, just concerning one hospital alone, Tembisa Hospital, is that 3 billion rand over 3 years was misspent there. Now imagine if 3 billion rand at one hospital alone was properly spent. Of course you wouldn't have people sleeping for days in the casualty department. Helen Joseph Hospital is notorious for a casualty department where people have to spend a very long time before they're admitted. Well, if the money wasn't stolen and mismanaged, I'm sure you could properly staff that hospital, fix up the facilities. I've heard for so long how hospitals are going to be fixed up But you know that not a single hospital in Gauteng, they admit it, complies with occupational health and safety legislation.
Okay, so,
So
sorry. I mean, there's so much concern there. So just for the record, are we saying, or are you confirming that in your assessment and the Auditor General's remarks that let's say Gauteng specifically, but by extension also it could be just about any other province as well, that the state of public health care is in a rather unhealthy state, and in many cases chronically unhealthy?
Yes, it's an intensive care, and I can tell you why we never get the change that we need in Gauteng, because the rot starts at the very top. Now, Premier Panyaza Lesufi has just appointed a head of department. He did it straight after the election, but they didn't announce it until 2 months later, which is very fishy. I think there's been a number of irregularities in that appointment, and I've referred it to the Public Service Commission, and they are investigating. But the current head of department is actually being investigated by the SIU for allegedly sharing an 8 million rand bribe with 2 other officials. Now, how on earth, in a department that is notorious for, frankly, corruption and inefficiency and mismanagement, do you not get a totally uncompromised person as head of the department to head that department? It's just unbelievable. I really think if Premier Lesufi is serious about reforming that department, he's actually got to get a new head of department, and I do believe there were irregularities in that appointment, and I think they need to own up to it.
Okay.
If you don't fix the top, nothing else is going to fundamentally change.
And if, as you say, we are in intensive care, I mean, that requires intensive attention. So outside the point that you made earlier on, maybe 3 things for you that you think requires the most urgent attention. What would that be?
Well, put the right people in the right places, starting with that. And at hospital level, how can Helen Joseph Hospital not have a permanent CEO for many years? These hospitals are huge enterprises. Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital has a budget of more than 3 billion rand and 6,000 employees. So all of these hospitals are major businesses which need very, very capable people. So start with the people, and then infrastructure. You really got to get serious about that and start fixing up our hospitals. They're not always safe. And it's just very poor environment for people in general. And to do all that, you actually have to have discipline with financial management, because every year the Auditor General gives these critical reports. So I would say follow the Auditor General's recommendations and fix up your finances. Then I think if you do those 3 things, we'd have a dramatically transformed Gauteng Health Department, which we wouldn't have terrible stories like Mr. London has given us.
All right, now Tom, London's testimony has highlighted to a large degree what he sees as neglectful medical practitioners who treat their patients like cockroaches, it's his words, and also just the very, very shoddy and unhygienic conditions in the hospital. On the other hand, Dr. Imzukwa, the chairperson of the South African Medical Association, by and large agrees with him that is the status quo, considering, notwithstanding some exceptions. But very importantly, he said there are serious mitigating factors that speaks to neglect even of the medical practitioners themselves, in terms of, overworked, underpaid, too long hours, the overall general conditions bad. You mentioned no CEO, which suggests that they themselves are sitting ducks, and also have grounds for saying that their treatment puts them into ICU themselves.
Well, everybody is under stress in a public hospital. If there's staff vacancies, if the environment is not safe and falling apart and not pleasant, that's a terrible place to work in. And I do feel very sorry for health workers who are trying to do their best in adverse circumstances, and they're overwhelmed by patients. That's the other problem. They're overwhelmed by patients. There often is not enough equipment or working equipment, because they have a huge problem with failing equipment. And unless we're serious about top management changes, and unless we get rid of the corruption. I was trying to estimate how much of the 65 billion rand budget is simply wasted or stolen. Conservatively, one would normally say 10%, but quite frankly, I think it might be closer to 20 to 30%. Now, imagine if we could have fiscal discipline and financial management and top people doing imaginative things to get this Gauteng Health Department right. We have all the brains here. We've got the medical school here. The Gauteng Health Department signed a memorandum of agreement with this medical school some years ago, and they never implemented it. So we do have the people who can turn this department around, but it'll never happen when there's all this cadre deployment. They put their buddies in place. They protect each other. There's criminal syndicates operating, as we've seen at the Tembisa Hospital. I think there's a scam in every hospital, and the only way going to clean it up is to do drastic action, use the talent that we have. Instead of people like Babita Diakaran getting murdered, cherish them, promote them. We do have the people to turn this health department around, but not at the present moment.
Let's leave it at that. Jack Bloom, the DA Shadow MEC for Health in Gauteng. So Jack Bloom says that, in fact, South Africa's public health care, by and large, with obviously some exceptions, but overwhelmingly so, is not just in an unhealthy state, but is in ICU state, in intensive care. The question is, what treatment do you give an institution in intensive care? I certainly welcome your suggestions moving forward. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Greg Cross.
Quick look at the headlines. 2 law firms have embarked on a campaign calling on Tiger Brands to compensate victims of the listeriosis outbreak. The European Union's announced 2 green energy investments here in South Africa, and more than 60 people are reported to have been killed in Vietnam as a super typhoon sweeps across that country. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, Atlas Road in Boksburg has a crash near Shear Avenue. The N1 northbound in Midrand has a crash before New Road, and the N1 southbound in Pretoria has a stationary vehicle after Garsfontein Road. In KZN, the N2 southbound is slow moving towards Spaghetti Junction. The N2 southbound has a crash after Umgeni Road, and Chris Hani Road westbound queuing at the N2 highway. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is slow moving towards Hospital Bend. The M3 inbound is slow moving towards Hospital Bend. Victoria Road outbound is slow moving through Woodstock, and Albert Road outbound is slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, Tumi, let's talk football and a special guest.
Absolutely. Let's start things off with football this hour. Bafana coach Hugo Bruce says that he will make changes when they face South Sudan and their second 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. South Africa nearly suffered a first official home match defeat under Bruce on Friday when Uganda took a surprise 2-1 lead, only for Talente Mbata to save Bafana Blushes with a late stoppage time equalizer to ensure a point. Bafana have to win in Juba to get a foothold back in Group K that is led currently by Congo, who beat South Sudan 1-0 in their opening game in Brazzaville on Thursday. Then in cricket, Lungi Ngidi is back in the Proteas setup after being named in the squad for the white ball tour to the UAE, where they will play Afghanistan and Ireland. Ngidi missed the recent 3-match T20 series in the West Indies due to a calf injury, but will bolster a relatively inexperienced squad. The Proteas management have decided to rest a host of first-choice players for the tour, including Kagiso Rabada, Keshav Maharaj, Andrich Nortje, Marco Janssen, Tabrice Shamsi, Gerald Kutsia, David Miller, and Heinrich Klaassen. Now, the Proteas will face Afghanistan in 3 ODIs from the 18th to the 22nd of September before heading to Abu Dhabi for 2 T20s on the 27th and 29th of September and 3 ODIs from the 2nd to the 7th of October against Ireland. But still staying with cricket, today the spotlight is on Proteas woman captain Laura Fulvard, who last week walked away with 5 awards at the Cricket South Africa Awards, including the T20 International Player, One Day International Player, and also the significant Player of the Year awards, and also winning the Women's Player of the Year award for a second time. Now, she joins me on the line. Laura, a very good afternoon to you. Hope you're doing well this afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me.
Firstly, a big congratulations on your accolades. I'm sure it has officially sunk in. But I mean, with all these incredible accolades coming in and you having an absolutely great season, how do you stay grounded and motivated to keep improving your game?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I guess the awards are obviously a very special evening. Definitely didn't expect for it to go that way. The other teammates that were nominated had incredible seasons as well. Yeah, I think the awards are obviously nice to have. I think it's not sort of the main reason why we sort of do what we do on the field. I think when you're on the field, you're just trying to win games for your team and do the best that you can to win the game that you're busy with. So yeah, I think it's just keep working to get better and keep focusing on what I can do to help win games for my team.
I mean, one of the awards is Players' Player of the Year, which was voted by your peers. What do you think resonated the most with them about your leadership and playing style?
Yeah, that's obviously a very special one, sort of to be recognized by my teammates who are there through every single moment and get to see every single match sort of from a front row seat. I guess it's a really special award to be sort of, voted by the players. I think we had a good season overall as a team. I think a lot of youngsters had some awesome opportunity. I was obviously lucky to score a few runs in a couple of the games, and yeah, just very happy that they voted for me.
And as the captain of the team, what do you find the most rewarding about leading this group of women?
For me, it's been amazing to see how much everyone has improved their skills just in the short time that I've been captain. It's amazing to see the hard work that everyone puts in behind the scenes, and then to see them sort of get the reward for that on the field is a very special feeling. I think it's a very young group of players. We've had some big changes in the squad recently, so to see those youngsters coming into the environment, working hard, and then getting the opportunity to sort of make their debuts and make an impact on the field is very rewarding as a captain. So yeah, it's been an awesome season.
Listen, you're 25 years old and you're already winning all these accolades, and you're the captain of the national team, and with the World Cup coming up also, I'm sure there's a lot of pressure that comes, especially going to this particular World Cup with everyone expecting you guys to lift the trophy. How are you dealing with that pressure?
Yeah, there's obviously a bit of extra pressure. I think a World Cup is a very big event. It's the first one that I'm captaining as well. I hadn't really thought about it too much until I saw all the articles about our team announcement, and then it sort of sunk in that it's quite a big occasion, and a lot more prep work has to go in, obviously, with every match being against a different team. It's very different to a normal bilateral series that I've just been captaining in the past. And then obviously having made the final 2 years ago, I think we'll obviously be looking to do the same, or to hopefully better that this time. So there is a bit of pressure on us this time. I don't think we're the outright underdogs anymore. I think we've proved that we can make the final. So yeah, I think we'll be backing ourselves to do the same.
Listen, I'll definitely be rooting for you and the ladies. I know that you guys are going to do well. But before I let you go, I mean, we see how women's cricket is growing in the country. Your thoughts on the pace that women's cricket is growing in South Africa?
Women's cricket around the world has just absolutely exponentially shot up. I think when I started playing here in South Africa, I was the only girl that I knew of in a 1,000-mile radius that was playing cricket. And now, the national team's on TV. We have domestic contracts. We have a nationally contracted side. So the game is really improving really fast. I think other countries like Australia and England are ahead of us as far as the development pace is going. We still have a bit of catching up to do. But yeah, I think the growth in the last 5 to 10 years has been absolutely amazing, and it's been awesome to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Just before I let you go, is there anything that you want to achieve personally now, even though you've already won all these awards?
Well, I guess to win a World Cup. I guess that's the one that everyone cricketer sort of dreams of. That'll be very special.
Well, I'm crossing fingers for you and the team as a whole. But thank you very much, Laura, for joining me this afternoon. I'm wishing you and the ladies nothing but the best in your preparations leading up to the World Cup. And just you personally with your career as a whole. That is Proteas woman captain Laura Fulvard, just chatting about her success as a whole. I think it's absolutely great just to see how she's been doing and growing in leaps and bounds over years. With that said, it is a wrap from my side.
And Laura Fulvard certainly gets it right that if she wins the World Cup, then South Africa wins. So I certainly want to win as well, which means we need to encourage her to win. Great, really enjoyed that conversation to me. Another winner coming up just now in that feature we call Winning. We'll chat to Nomonde in Glema. Looking forward to that. A TikToker with an interesting slant.
Right.
Welcome to the team, Andile.
Thank you.
What will be your first order of business?
Well, ensuring our greatest assets are taken care of.
Our vehicle fleet?
No, our employees. You see, I want them to feel confident in our company's employee benefits, and Old Mutual Corporate is perfect for that. They take care of everything, from retirement benefits to health and group risk solutions, consulting, and more.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
It is Game On!
Game On!
It is where the real lovers of the game dive deep into detail of the upcoming local and international fixtures. Join us on Game On as Mr. Sizwe, Flick Flick Bang Mapena and the legends zoom closer to the thrilling performance of the pitch personnel.
How was your favorite team's performance?
Find out on Game On every Saturday at 2 p.m. on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com.
SABC Sports.
For the love of the game.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, as always, Jimmy Moya hosts the SFM Market Update. Jimmy, good chatting to you. What's moving markets today?
Good evening, Ashraf. Good evening to our listeners. It's a new week, and we kick off the week with a look at some Sun International numbers. They gave us an update on how they're doing after the first half of the year. They gave us a bumper to their interim dividend, so we're going to speak to the Sun International CEO around that business. I'm also going to see if I can get an update around that Piermont acquisition. They're still buying out Emperor's Palace, hopefully, so we're going to speak to Anthony Leeming around that and try and make sense of what's going on there. Then we've got a conversation with Treasury One around the Rand expectations, obviously following the jobs data we saw last week and going into the rest of the year, going into the rest of the month. We've got two interest rate decisions that will affect the Rand against the dollar, being one from the US, one from our own central bank. So we're going to look at that and see how we're prepared for that, because that takes place next week. Then we're going to look into the world of digital payments. We're going to speak to the company called ACI Worldwide. They back or they create software for some of the banks in the world. In fact, all of the 20 largest banks in the world use their software to process payments. So we're going to look at that and understand what it means in the digital world that we live in. And then because it's Monday, we've got personal finance. And on Monday, we're going to be taking a look at the second-hand car market. There was a report that came out today from Westbank that suggests that second-hand cars are twice as popular as new vehicles, obviously owing to interest rates and a number of other factors. But we're going to speak to My Way Insurance around that and try and understand the second-hand market a little bit better. Before we get to that, markets haven't had the best start to the week. Last week was a very volatile week with a lot of bearish price movements. This week hasn't started off too great. If we look at some Asian movements, all Asian markets were in the red. The Nikkei was down 0.7%. Shanghai was down 0.9%. Hong Kong 1.8% in the red, and Sydney 0.25% in the red. European markets and the US markets were all in the green. On the other hand, the CAC 40 in France 0.75% up, the DAX in Germany 0.33%, and the FTSE in London almost a full percent in the green. Nasdaq at the moment and the S&P 500 are both 0.7% in the green. Our local markets were a bit of a mixed bag. Industrials were kind of flat. Financials were up about 0.58%, just under 0.6%, but that was cancelled out by resources losing 0.6%. As a result, the all share was flat to marginally green, so call it 0.1% in the green, with the top 40 at 0.07% in the green, pretty much where we traded around Friday. If we look at the Rand, a bit weaker against the US dollar, 17 Rand 88. 1 British pound will cost you 23 Rand and 39 cents. 1 euro will cost you 19 Rand and 74 cents. 1 Australian dollar, 11 Rand and 90 cents. A quick look at the commodities price movements. The gold price, $2,496 an ounce. Brent crude, $70.93 a barrel. I'm so happy with that number. I hope it comes below $70 a barrel, but I also know that that is a very optimistic request for OPEC. Platinum pricing, $940 an ounce. Palladium, $929 an ounce. And anyone looking at Bitcoin, $55,368,000 for a Bitcoin, roughly 990,000 Rand for a Bitcoin. Not the best price at the moment, but getting cheaper and cheaper. That's what we have at the moment, and we'll be back with a little more a little later on.
And listen, before I let you go, give me this masterclass on, what is often referred to as the US jobs market data. Like, what is it? Why should I care?
So that's the data that came out on Friday. If you remember on Friday when you and I spoke, we said that non-farms numbers were worse than expected. Effectively, there are different jobs data points that come out from the US, and in a nutshell, you've got ADP versus NFP. ADP is the private jobs data that's measured by an independent company in the US that independently measures the labor market, whereas the NFP report specifically is specifically composed by the Bureau of Labor Statistics on a month-to-month basis. One measures kind of a combination of private sector and public sector jobs, and then the NFP measures mostly public sector jobs, and so it's an indication. These reports kind of give the Fed an indication of the strength of the US jobs market in terms of how many new jobs were created in that monthly time frame. It's usually estimates, and so at some point in the year you'll see there's big adjustments to those numbers as more realistic data comes out to reflect that.
Okay, now we know. Thank you for that, and we will certainly chat tomorrow, but enjoy your show coming up at 6 o'clock, Jimmy. Let's pick up some other thoughts. In fact, before I get to some of the callers, and I'll certainly get to you, Faisal, and Anonymous in a moment. So here's a report, in fact, in terms of this developing story about South Africa's healthcare, or Gauteng in particular. So here's a note from the Faculty of Health Sciences, right? And they say, it comes from the Dean, a message from the Dean of the Faculty of Health Sciences. Most students and staff are likely aware of a video currently circulating on social media regarding the poor state of facilities at the Helen Joseph Hospital, as well as the alleged unprofessional conduct of some student and staff members. At the outset, let me state that the Faculty of Health Sciences is fully committed to ensuring that we train students who not only become masters of their profession, but who are also compassionate and who maintain the dignity of all patients when engaging with them. Let me acknowledge and thank the many doctors and healthcare professionals who carry on their duties impeccably and with distinction despite the challenges that they face every day. We are fully aware of the ailing infrastructure and the shortage of healthcare workers across most health facilities in Gauteng. We appreciate the challenging nature of working in public hospitals, and we need to continue advocating for improvements in staffing and infrastructure in our public health services. Despite these challenges, it is incumbent on every student and staff member to respect patients, to treat them with dignity and compassion, and to engage with them in an exemplary manner. Now, we acknowledge the staff are often stretched to capacity and to provide optimal healthcare, coupled with managing rotations, especially interns and other administrative challenges. This does not excuse us from extending professional healthcare services to vulnerable patients. Now, maybe just the last bit I can read. Of particular concern is the alleged lack of basic civility of some of our medical students, our future healthcare workers. Students are reminded of the oath that they took at the start of their clinical training, in which they committed as follows: in my interactions with colleagues and others, I will be respectful of their dignity and rights. I will endeavor to promote the welfare of my university and maintain its reputation, and I will adhere to the highest ethical standards in my professional capacity and my service to the community. Lastly, it is of essence that we engage with patients in the same manner that we would want others to engage with us and our family members should we be on the receiving end of healthcare services. We therefore urge all staff and students to reflect on the oath that you took up at the start of your studies and upon graduation to ensure that we live up to the commitment that we made and that we treat patients with dignity, compassion and respect at all times. Finally, he says, should you come up across any students or staff members who do not adhere to these values, please direct these complaints to the head of school, Professor Dania Ballot, and the deanery so that they can be addressed immediately. Let's thank you, Professor Shabir Mahdi, the Dean of the Faculty of Health Sciences. So it's not clear from that whether there's an actual investigation, although it does talk about if you have staff members who do not adhere to these values, you can address these complaints. But there's no actual investigation in terms of that's my understanding. So there we are, the Dean of Health Sciences at the University of Witwatersrand. Let's see if we can take some quick calls before we get to the next guest. Anonymous, hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very good. Right, go ahead. 1 point.
Yes, Philadelphia Hospital is one such hospital that's very similar to Helen Joseph. I'm a private healthcare professional, and the hospital usually turns away my referrals because my patients can access private healthcare, so why are they coming to a public hospital? And the area, people in the area are just hesitant to even visit the hospital. That doesn't happen anymore. The malnutrition in children who don't do their road to health follow-ups with the hospital because of the treatment that they are getting. So the issue is much bigger than just Helen Joseph. Our public institutions do have a huge problem on their end.
Got that. Thanks for just giving us that point. Right. Faisal, we've got just one comment we can get from you very quickly. Hi, Faisal from King Williamstown. Yes, go ahead, Faisal.
Ashraf, what I want to say is that all people you got in the hospitals, I was in hospital myself in the Fleur Hospital in East London 2-3 years back. They treat me so well. I was scared how the people talking, so negativity. Now today, one person is a friend of mine, I didn't see him. I called him, he says, no, he had a stomach problem, he was taken to Bishop Hospital. I hear horrible stories of the Bishop Hospital. I asked, he said, no, they were so good, so kind-hearted. So in all places, there are good people. One of your callers, he said that he followed the nurse from private hospital to the state hospital. So it means that people don't even want to bring all negativity. Their good nurses are working very good.
I agree with you.
Yeah. The structures are falling apart, but you can't be so negative. I see the nurses. I said, well, I was in the hospital. How they treated me. In fact, when I was shocked because people what the people were telling me when I was there.
All right.
We can't just put 20 people.
Well, point made. I think you're right, Faisal. There are brilliant people in public healthcare. And there are also those that have shortcomings under pressure. So it's not being negative. You do have to highlight the negatives as well, the wrongs, but you also have to acknowledge the moments and the pockets of absolute brilliance.
When self-made billionaire Wilton Knight rescues police detective Lieutenant Michael Long after a near-fatal shot to the face, he gives him a new identity and a new name, Michael Knight. Paired with the unique Knight Industries 2000 aka kit, they are brought in during situations where direct action might provide the only feasible solution. Kusazo Shuba and Michael Knight and Kit are ready to rise to the occasion. Channel your best retro with Knight Rider, weekdays at 12 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
The National Thunder trust their game plan will trouble the Sparrow Hawks. However, the Togolese believe they will punch above their weight to secure victory. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Equatorial Guinea collides with Togo on Monday, 9 September at 5 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, last thing for the day, as we do most nights, we focus on winning, people winning in whichever field they are in. So today we chat to Nomonde Ngema, who's a 21-year-old TikToker. I need to follow Nomonde. But that's TikTokers living with HIV. Nomonde uses social media to educate South Africans about the benefits of approaching life from a positive point of view and to correct misconceptions and to help others learn about HIV. So in 2 weeks' time, Nomonde will be jetting off to New York to attend the United Nations SDG Summit of the Future as a speaker. So you are TikTok is a massive platform. Now we know. Nawande, good chatting to you, and good having you as a guest, reflecting on how you are winning.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Thank you.
With you.
Well, first of all, as I talk to you, I'm instantly following you on TikTok as I talk, just so that you know that one more of these followers. I hope I find you right.
Thank you.
What do you achieve? What did you want to achieve when you went on a TikTok platform to educate other people around HIV?
So as a child, obviously navigating HIV wasn't always easy and, beautiful. And I always thought to myself, I made a promise that I'll become the adult that I wanted to have as a child, because there were no HIV activists that were relatable at my time. And so last year I realized that I'm really at a place where this is a positive experience. I am knowledgeable and I am ready to, finally be that beacon of hope for other people, just to hold their hands as they navigate, this journey, because that's what we all need. We just need someone to do it with. And so because that was necessary, I decided to, publicly disclose my status, do it on TikTok, and yeah.
So what were you doing? So how long have you been talking about living with HIV on TikTok, and what were you doing before that?
I started last year around November. Before that, I was just a creative. I was also just trying to counsel myself into making it a positive experience, because I share a lot about how childhood HIV counseling was never really effective. And so I had to work on my own to, overcome my mental health and to, maneuver into a more positive space. And then, once that was accomplished, then I was ready to now get into the space and do it for other people. Okay. So in terms of your TikTok clips, right, video clips, maybe, I mean, give me examples of the type of narrative that you share on a daily basis or weekly basis. Yeah. So I share a lot of content based on debunking misconceptions and destigmatizing HIV, and also just creating a more open, compassionate conversation centered around HIV and how people can be more kinder in words and also in just encountering people that are living with HIV. I also share pieces of advice and how to, maneuver this journey for people that are already living with HIV, and how to prevent getting HIV for people that don't have HIV. And then I also demedicalize a lot of HIV research so that it's relatable for young people. Now, what sort of impact have you had then, moving away from other typical content creation to suddenly talking about HIV? Explain the type of impact you were getting initially, and then how did you respond to that when people were saying some things about you sharing your life, right? Yeah. So obviously there's different types of stigma, and I did feel that there would be anticipated stigma in regards to people saying negative things, but there's also positive things. So people do say negative things out of an unknowledgeable state of mind, and where I come in is to educate them, and if they are educatable, then they will, move from that mindset. But if they're not, then someone else will see that comment or will receive that content and then move from that state of things. So either way, if people are being unkind to me and have negative comments, I learn from it. I use it as data to help other people to not be stuck in that negative perspective. And other people, they share kind comments that really encourage and empower me to go on, because I know that what I'm doing actually matters and it is just beyond me. Now, TikTok, as you and I know, you can have a small audience or a large audience. Hopefully you have a large following, but you certainly can create impact very, very quickly, even of a very small base, right? Do I take it that you're getting views that are wow, that it's like, oh my goodness, look what's happening here? Yeah, sometimes I create content that, it's just basic content, not, so much educational content, and then it just blows up, and it's something I never imagined people are going to relate to. And so I think for me, it also just gave me a glimpse of how important it is to find different ways to educate people and to also just demonstrate this experience to other people. And also in terms of the audience, I think for me at some point it got to a place where I was like, even if people don't engage, I know someone is being touched by what I do. I know there is always someone. There's millions of people living with HIV in the world. Okay. There is someone. Yeah. Well, lastly, you are going to touch others because you're going to attend the UN SDG Summit of the future as a speaker. So that's a wow for you. Just very quickly, tell me what's happened there.
Oh, first of all, I'm just excited to be going there. So the Summit of the Future is a high-level event that is organized by United Nations, and it is described as like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It's like a once-in-a-lifetime event where global leaders are going to be collaborating on discussing issues that are currently happening globally and that we might possibly encounter in the future. And this is all in aim to like forge like a collective vision, and also so that we can be all partnered into creating effective strategies against these issues that we're facing, and also that's where HIV and AIDS come in, because it's also part of
Well, we're certainly going to look at your story. I have no doubt. I certainly will pay attention even when you are in the USA. So here's the last thing as we wrap up very quickly. What's your TikTok handle? Because I'm battling to follow you. So tell us what it is, and the last thing in one sentence. What is one of the most impactful replies you've ever had from someone watching you creating content on TikTok?
Okay, my TikTok handle is Iba Nomonde, every on Instagram as well. And one of the most impactful things I've heard from a viewer was that love is the new cure. Love is the new cure for HIV.
Love is the new cure, and don't we now know it? We'll appreciate your time, and then spread the love when you're off to the USA, and certainly ensure that you remind them that you are made in South Africa, and made it in South Africa as well, just so that they all know. Yeah. Thanks for sharing the fact that you are winning. Just an absolute delight. Namonde Mgema, Her Voice Fund Ambassador for South Africa. That's the show. That's the National Pulse. But the big issues that moves the National Pulse continues off air as well. You can communicate with us, engage with us on social media throughout the evening until we do it all over again tomorrow with another issue that clearly will move the National Pulse. At 6 o'clock, here's the news with Greg House.
Thank you again, Ashraf. A campaign to compensate listeriosis victims and dozens killed in Vietnam typhoon. Good evening to you. Law firms Richard Spoor attorneys and LHL attorneys have embarked on a campaign calling on Tiger brands to compensate victims of the listeriosis outbreak.